Hey there, amazing viewers. Welcome back to our YouTube channel where we bring you your favorite manhwa recaps. Did you know that more than 90% of our viewers have not subscribed yet? So please, if you're enjoying our videos and want to be part of our awesome community, now is the perfect time to hit that subscribe button. Joining our subscriber family means you'll never miss out on any of our exciting content. So, take a quick second to click that big red subscribe button below. And don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay notified whenever we release a new video. Enjoy watching and stay awesome.
The story goes with a protagonist having an ability to fight against non-human like huge monsters, big as a building that made humans look like ants. But the protagonist could dash with a fast speed that could make him unseen with our naked eye. He was so fast that the next thing the monster knew was the protagonist suddenly being close in its range. Unfortunately, the protagonist wasn't strong enough. The monster managed to kill him off by cutting him in half. The protagonist was defeated with a dismembered body. He lays on the ground with blood dripping on his mouth. The next thing he heard was a familiar robotic voice line as his consciousness fades away, and his last vision was a notification window that's informing him that he just failed the quest for getting killed. Moments before the disaster, the protagonist was just doing his usual agenda in his life. He is a cashier at a convenience store giving customers a bright and shiny smile to spread positivity. The protagonist is Gibong Kim, a 20-year-old college student. Gibong is a part-time worker who's happily enjoying his life. But the truth is, he's already sick of it. Gibong couldn't really enjoy his life as a commoner because of how his life goes on with the same routine and the same old views. It was quite real boring for Gibong. He then received a text message. It was a message from his mom hoping to get an update from her hard-working son. Gibong gave an update that he's still on his shift. Their conversation was wholesome that the two of them talked about eating some fried chicken since it's Gibong's payday. Gibong had a wholesome moment with his mom when he realized his mother really catches up about his daily life. The mother made a joke by making his son order a soy-flavored chicken for him and the regular ones are for her. Until a loud banging noise was heard from the outside of the convenience store. Gibong panicked because of how terrifying the sound was. Gibong ran out of the store thinking it might be an urgent matter causing the city. All of a sudden, the atmosphere became darker, and the place was filled with flame dust, until it was revealed that the explosion was caused by the multiple monsters roaming and terrorizing the city. Gibong was so speechless to see multiple extraterrestrial beings bigger than the buildings and infrastructures. Gibong couldn't explain the phenomena with monsters that are in different breeds. Gibong was in denial thinking he might be dreaming. Gibong was so distracted that a monster suddenly sensed his presence. The monster was extremely dubious looking kind, and made Gibong freeze out of fright. It finally hit Gibong that he is in a dangerous situation and the first thing that came to his mind was to run away. He ran as fast as he could to get to a much safer place. Gibong's mind was all jumbled by thinking to survive while trying to comprehend what was going on at the same time. Unfortunately, Gibong tripped over the wrong timing situation. Gibong has to think of how he'll be able to get out of his disadvantageous situation. And to his surprise, he was slashed in half like how he was at the beginning of the plot. The situation went so fast that he didn't feel the harm in the first place. Gibong's body finally reacted from the severe injury as he coughed blood. As he loses more blood, his strength becomes weaker. He looked back to see the monster responsible for decapitating his body, and he saw a monster with tons of teeth and tentacles with blades on its ends, until Gibong passes away and accepted death. While Gibong was unconscious, he heard an alarm, but then he unexpectedly gained consciousness and saw a system notification. He saw the glimpse of the city he's living in to be filled with flames and slowly being burned down with the system notification informing Gibong that his awakening trial will initiate to activate his humanity's awakening program. Gibong was deeply confused with some robotic sound he's hearing on his last moments on Earth. The next thing he knew, his body suddenly turned into a matrix. Gibong's bodies were attached to each other again like it's magic and teleported into an unknown. Gibong still couldn't figure out what was going on to see himself well and alive, and saw himself in a room filled with binary codes. But something more eerie happened to Gibong, and that's when he realized his body was attached like nothing horrible just had happened to him. The series of incomprehensible events made Gibong completely blanked his mind. All of a sudden, the system spoke to greet Gibong like he's some sort of video game character. Gibong was confused since he's forced to be in an awakening trial. His usual life became chaotic, since he was just a cashier minutes ago and was suddenly teleported into an unrealistic and holographic room. Gibong felt heavy as soon as the system immediately initiated his awakening trial, until a gigantic monster appeared in front of him to be his opponent. Gibong was put in a challenging and impossible situation when his quest ordered him to attack a monster that would respond to much stronger force to damage Gibong. Gibong was seriously dumbfounded that a system wanted him, a normal human being, to scathe an extraterrestrial being. The monster was bloodthirsty and vicious that could crush Gibong into a pulp. Gibong panicked when the monster first initiated the attack. Gibong knew he was going to die again because of his huge strength gap with the monster, until the monster successfully smashed Gibong's delicate human body. The trial ended and it wasn't even a minute had passed. Realistically, Gibong died due to the monster's attack, but then he was once again revived. He was so confused with the scenario of getting killed again and again. As he looked to his side, he saw his crushed dead corpse. He couldn't stop looking at how gory and terrifying his death experience was. As a natural reaction of a human, he felt sick to see his own dead body being crushed like an insect. Gibong vomited because of how gross his dead body was. Gibong tried his best to snap back to reality, but the situation was just too overwhelming, until the monster became more provoked to see its opponent alive and well. Gibong, who had no idea how he could fight the enormous creature, froze out of fright. He began to cry even though he would just regenerate, but to think of facing another painful death scared him. Gibong couldn't stop trembling with fear spreading throughout his body. At that moment, Gibong's only strategy was to run for his life even though the monster had an unrealistic fast speed, until Gibong's head was decapitated in the blink of an eye. Once again, Gibong was defeated. He can't stop crying thinking of the fact that he now sealed a deal to his fate without his knowing. But of course, every time Gibong dies, the game would just regenerate him. Every time Gibong dies, it was like he will go back to the beginning until he cleared the quest that the system has given him. From being terrified, Gibong finally snapped since he still had no idea how he could kill the gigantic creature. But the system admits that in Gibong's case, it would be impossible for him to kill the monster. Because the Dimension programmed the monster to be a transcendent tier creature, it was a bit unfair since the system forced Gibong, a rookie, to fight against a boss monster. Gibong was startled with the system, who seemed to have a mind of its own since it replied to his concern. Gibong took his chance to ask multiple questions, such as why he was trapped in the dimension and the fact that the system chose him. But the only information that was given to Gibong was that he is in a testing trial area for players and the dimension was designed to assure the fairness of the trial. Gibong still had no idea due to the lack of context that he received. The system kept explaining only what's relevant to the so-called game instead of explaining the reason why Gibong was abducted. The system's reasons are that humanity is capable of awakening its full potential. Once the awakening trial ended, the system promised to return Gibong to his real world. The system made sure that Gibong does not have to worry about dying in the middle of the test since his body will regenerate no matter how many times he dies in the area. Gibong felt insulted that he was being treated like a lab rat and not a human being at all. The whole situation sounded like a pretext for a fantasy novel, but Gibong still had to believe what the system told him because his own dead bodies that were scattered everywhere already served as evidence that the system was telling the truth. Gibong tried to figure out how he was supposed to take the role as a player. He once again faced the vicious monster, while in his mind, he was just forced and never given any choice. Gibong hasn't even prepared for the battle, yet the monster instantly blasted him off with its powerful breath. Even so, Gibong managed to hold a grip of his weight in order for him to not stumble on the ground. Gibong was forced to either repeat a painful death or accept the whole situation. Even though the situation is impossible to gain victory, Gibong would still try to give his best shot, until he finally awakened his superhuman ability. Since he's now awakened, Gibong's stats and abilities will now be generated, wherein no matter how many times he loses, he would still gain something due to the experience. Gibong gathered all the strengths he has, so he could dash his body at full fast speed against the monster. Gibong began to fly with a lighting attribute on his fist. With full determination to escape the dimension, he was ready to kill the monster. As his fist crashed through the monster, he believed he'd finished the miserable trial. Until finally, Gibong managed to be successful, and the trial is now over. The system congratulated him and made Gibong smirk, thinking he'll finally return to Earth and eat chicken with his mother. He couldn't stop being so joyful since he finally won the impossible quest. The only thing Gibong had to do was to wait for the system to teleport him to his real world, until he sensed something fishy. He felt like it was taking time to teleport him back. Gibong felt like the dimension was trolling him since it was compromised that he'll return once he accomplished defeating the monster. Unfortunately, the dimension suddenly had errors for Gibong to return to Earth. The phenomena were mysterious that even the dimension couldn't trace where the error came from. It was a psychological torture for Gibong since he already had high hopes of leaving the place. All of a sudden, Everything went back to zero and Gibong was in an awakening trial again. The dimension was so unfair that it left Gibong to be speechless, until he was smashed by the monster due to being distracted. He was generated yet was still speechless with the dimension's lack of preparation. Gibong finally snapped. He became more furious that the dimension took a toll on him. He didn't even care about the monster in front of him anymore. The situation became more annoying when the system made an announcement that there was a bug in the video game. Gibong was very unfortunate since he knew he'd be stuck in that dimension for an eternity. Time passes. Gibong went through an endless cycle of death and regeneration for a week, a month, until it reached a year. Gibong's mind slowly wasted away. He might be regenerated physically but not mentally. As time went by, being stuck in the dimension had increased his vitality. His recent status made the system to back up his data. Gibong, who is still at level 1, had a health point of 470 over 470 and a mana point of 250 over 250, with a strength of 25 points, agility of 11 points and a mana of 22 points. Gibong had his hopes up again, thinking it was a sign for him to return home. But it only disappointed him since the information was irrelevant to his case. Gibong doesn't care about his increased. He just wanted to find out if the backup data could be a key for the error to fix. Unfortunately, the system still doesn't allow him to leave for an eternity. Gibong reached the point of insanity. He doesn't even care how many times the monster would brutally kill him. Another time went by again. It goes 2 years, 3 years, and up to 4 years. Gibong tried everything he could do to run away. He even tried to resist the monster, but it only increased his stats immensely. Everything finally became meaningless to him. He could still remember the first time he was trapped, where his body was filled with terror and fear, but now he just doesn't care anymore that he decided to stop resisting. It's finally 10 years after his confinement. He asked the system how it was going outside the dimension. The system revealed that the Earth moves 300 times faster in the dimension Gibong was in than it does on Earth, because 10 years in the dimension is about 12 days in Earth. In the dimension, it has been 12 days since Gibong was held captive. He's already annoyed and furious. He remembered his last moments on Earth being wholesome with his mother. He was so mad since all he wanted was to keep his promise to eat some fried chicken with his mother. Gibong was distracted until the monster splats him again. Time passed until it was 500 years after Gibong's confinement. Gibong's memories became blurry. It was tragic that he slowly forgot what his friends and family looked like. Gibong even forgot who he was. But only one question had lingered in his mind, was the fact that he has chosen to be trapped in such a place where he slowly loses his sanity. Gibong became a part of the dimension for a long period of time that the presence of the monster doesn't bother him anymore. He kept questioning his existence, until the monster's claws reached his close range. But with one swing, he managed to crush the monster's rock-looking hand. Gibong finally reached a certain point where he hated everything. Gibong was deeply furious with the fact that an innocent man like him being a victim in such a ridiculous fantasy world. He expressed his anger towards the monster. He only wanted to know one thing, yet the system never gave him a straightforward answer. Gibong only wanted to live a happy life since he's already sick of being a part-time college student. He clenched his jaw so hard until he harmed himself. For many years of experience in the dimension, even though the monster's terrifying aura is spread through the room, Gibong doesn't have to put up his guard anymore. In fact, he used the monster as his punching bag to express his suppressed anger with the system's failure. He even began to be more powerful than the monster. Meanwhile, in the real world, it has been 10 years since humanity's awakening. The Earth seemed healthy and fine, until there was a crack seen on the clouds. The system kept notifying the Earthlings that there was an error. Because an immeasurable burst of energy has erupted within the server, the system's firewall has been destroyed. It turns out, it was Gibong Kim who finally got out of the dimension using his bare hands. And in that dimension, the monster was seen being crushed into a pulp because of Gibong. Gibong became overpowered with the 10 years of experience in psychological torture in the dimension. It was only 10 years on Earth, but the total period of the awakening trial in the dimension. It was revealed to be 3,000 years. Gibong became an emotionless human being, with a stat point of 9,999 overall. Due to being overpowered, Gibong managed to break throughout the system. But for the past 3,000 years, Gibong has had only one thought as soon as he got out of the dimension. And that's where he must keep his promise to his mother of eating a delicious fried chicken with her. The system finally downloaded the synchronization and informed Gibong that only 10 years had passed on Earth since he was abducted. He then asked the system for his mother's location. As usual, the system was unable to give Gibong some important information and details. Gibong wasn't even surprised on that point. Gibong decided to just head home first. Gibong arrived at his home, only to find out that it was completely ruined and demolished. He was concerned with how it ended up demolished, until two military officers noticed Gibong in such a dangerous area. The military officers warned Gibong that he just had entered a restricted area and must head to the safety zone immediately. Gibong was still trying to catch up with Earth that had passed for 10 years. He then asked the officer about the history of the restricted area. The officer was confused since the phenomena was infamous, yet a person wasn't aware of the cause. But Gibong still didn't mind the fact that people might find him weird for being unaware of the famous social issue in crisis. Even so, the two military officers were still willing to give Gibong an explanation. The two officers still thought of Gibong being an ignorant, though he explained that the entire region was destroyed during the dungeon break 10 years ago. Gibong was shocked since the start of the time duration was the day he was abducted by the system. Gibong remembered the terrifying sounds of loud explosions and where he saw a bunch of different kinds of monsters when he ran away from the convenience store. He then asked what happened to the civilians that lived in the apartment where he used to live. The military officer straightforwardly answered the question, that all people were killed on the apartment building. Gibong felt like he was going to be sick since his mother lived in that apartment. He began to tremble as he overthought. He couldn't stop thinking of the possibilities that his mother might have been dead already. But then one military officer spoke up that not all tenants literally died since a few actually survived because they were outside. He also heard that the government evacuated the survivors into the safety zone. Gibong instantly snapped, thinking the military officers were playing with his emotions. He then put all those emotions away and just asked where the tenants are currently. The military officer could feel Gibong's monstrous aura that he actually felt fear despite carrying a weapon. The officer immediately answered Gibong's question that the evacuation center was at the shanty town in the B neighborhood. Gibong loses his grip on the officer and quickly ran away to see his mother. The military officer just let Gibong get away, thinking he might just be crazy, until the two military officers received a call from the higher-ups. It was an alert call about a chaotic situation occurring at a nearby area wherein a dungeon break is imminent, and it revealed that the location was at the Shantytown B neighborhood, exactly where Gibong was heading to. Meanwhile, at the B neighborhood, a lightning appeared in the sky just like how Gibong breaks through. All the military arrived as soon as possible for an urgent matter. They all gathered with the full forces they have. One of the officers named Hyungju-ano, a lieutenant colonel of the Capital Defense Force, had arrived. He yelled and ordered the team to secure the perimeter and call for reinforcements since the dungeon is about to unleash. He began to panic that he asked for one of the soldiers about the support team who hadn't arrived yet. Unfortunately, the support team had only dispatched later after the urgent call. Hyungju-an was deeply furious. He was disappointed at the support team who's been chilling since the shanty town was a safe place. He realized that the support team must be a bunch of corrupt officers who just wanted to take away all their funds. Hyungju-an tried to think of another way to execute the crisis. Then one officer named Jae-yoon Lee, a first lieutenant of the Capital Defense Force, was concerned about the urgent matter since their team was lacking. Hyungju-an yelled at Jae-yoon to form a line of defense and deal with the small monsters. As for Hyungju-an's case, his team will shoot the bigger ones down once they get some backup. Jae-yoon doesn't agree with Hyungju-an's risky plan where it could lead the civilians to be killed. But Hyungju-an has no sense of humanity at all, that he would rather get the innocent civilians get killed instead of the military. Jae-yoon felt a chill down her spine when she heard Hyungju-an became inhumane without any hesitations. After a while, Gibong finally arrived at the scene. He tried to search for his mother at the B neighborhood, but then he wondered about the place being filled with military forces. He then asked the system to gather information. The system revealed that the B neighborhood has an imminent dungeon break and that the monsters will spawn approximately 3 minutes. Gibong felt like he was having a PTSD from his previous experience 10 years ago. Gibong was alerted that his mother might get in danger if he does nothing. He doesn't care if the military scolded him, he just walked straight to save his mother. The military officers tried to stop him, but Gibong's mind was already settled to save his mother. Gibong only gave the two military officers a daring look. Yet, the military officer could feel his terrifying aura. The two military officers feared Gibong despite the two of them being fully geared. Gibong only stared at them, making sure no one would attempt to block his way. Hyungju-an yelled at his team for letting a civilian into their camping site, while Jae-yoon could sense something was off about Gibong. All the military forces pointed higher gun at Gibong to refrain from going further. Not until Gibong gathered his strength and willingness to fight all of the military forces in the name of his mother. Gibong doesn't only have a superhuman strength. He ordered the military forces to scram. And with one word, the military officers felt a heavy weight in their souls. It was like one of Gibong's abilities was to command people with a single line and he'll get what he wanted. Jae-yoon scolded Thetim for being too reckless to just be letting Gibong enter the site. But the military officers couldn't move out of fear, until one officer spoke up when he realized that Gibong is a player who experienced an awakening trial. Jae-yoon realized that Gibong isn't like the rest of humanity. All of a sudden, the sky became more dazzling. It was like its barriers were being broken by an unknown being, until it finally broke and opened a gate for the monsters to terrorize the city. The military forces froze at that moment. It was like their first time to witness the sky being unrealistically shattered. The claws of the monster were seen in the sky, attempting to widen their entrance. One military officer began to tremble. His adrenaline kicked in as soon as he realized that the dungeon break had started again. The military forces realized that it would be ridiculous to stick with their plan about shooting the monsters because it's equivalent on committing suicide. The military forces seemed to be more dependent on the support team who's not present at a time in need. It made Jae-yoon furious to think that they are useless without the support team and their forces. Even so, Jae-yoon knew she still needed to do something, even if it's just a small contribution to prevent the monsters from attacking on wide range. Jae-yoon's comrades believed that she's being reckless for going on her own. But Jae-yoon is determined to be a hero of the city. Meanwhile, on Gibong's side, the system informed him that the dungeon had been opened with a bunch of 5-star ranked monsters. Gibong was irritated since for the past 3,000 years, he became sick of all the monsters. Gibong didn't care and just walked away despite the 2 monsters lurking on his blind spot. The monsters thought Gibong had let his guard down. The monster then attempted to crush Gibong into pulp using its sharp teeth and strong jaws. But with one hit, the monster was defeated. The monster became a splatted insect on the ground while other monsters watched their kind got killed by a human being using his bare hands, until another monster jumped right in. The monster attempted to attack from a blind spot, but Gibong managed to dodge the sharp tentacles. Gibong has only one goal, and that is to meet his mother for the first time in 10 years. Whenever someone tried to get in his way, he'll make sure to assert harm. He then grabbed the monster's tongue and smashed it on the ground as soon as he lifted the monster up. The tables had turned when the monster was the one who's fearing a single human instead of them being feared. Gibong just carried on and walked straight to his goal. But his challenge still doesn't stop when 2 more monsters appear in front of him. The goblin-looking monster hasn't even done anything yet, but since it's a monster, Gibong eliminated it due to being a bothersome. With one punch, the monster's head exploded. Gibong just wanted to reach his goal, but the monsters are starting to target him. More monsters appeared in his surroundings while he was in midair. He tried to think of a plan on how he could handle the outnumbered monsters. Gibong started to spin at such a fast speed, and with his technique, he was able to scathe all the monsters near him. With a single punch, all the monsters' heads exploded. In a battle, it's natural to eliminate the strongest first in order to execute the plan, and that's why the monsters decided to target Gibong first before terrorizing the city again. All Gibong did was to use a single blow, and every monster would explode and lose. Gibong took care of all the flying monsters in the sky, until it became more chaotic when more multiples of monsters arrived to jump on Gibong. But no matter how hard they try, the monsters always end up being beaten into a pulp. Gibong could also levitate and fly with a fast speed that made him look like a shooting star in the sky. Meanwhile, on Jae-yoon's side, she followed Gibong thinking she could ask for help. But as soon as she arrived at the rooftop, she saw Gibong took care of the monsters all by himself. Jae-yoon was amazed since not even the military's war machines are able to stop a 5-star monsters. She wondered how a single person could achieve such an impossible mission. It seems like Jae-yoon is in a hurry to find Gibong. She hoped that she could locate him quickly. It sounds like Jae-yoon is feeling uncertain about where Gibong might have gone. Maybe she could retrace the places that Gibong had went through. Once Jae-yoon reached the rooftop of the building, she was met with an astonishing and unexpected sight. Spread out before her were a number of battered and bruised monsters. These creatures seemed to have endured a thorough beating, presenting a scene that was both surprising and puzzling. It must have been quite a surprising sight for Jae-yoon to witness Gibong's ability to easily defeat the monsters that even advanced military weapons couldn't handle. Gibong's effortless victory over the outnumbered monsters left Jae-yoon astonished, as he didn't even break a sweat during the encounter. The chaotic situation persisted as another monster made its appearance, further contributing to the ongoing disorder and uncertainty. This newly arrived monster surpassed the size of the rest, adding an extra layer of intimidation to the already tense scenario. The monster exhibited a sense of shock as it observed its comrades lying lifeless, evidently surprised by the sudden demise of its allies. Fueled by a newfound thirst for blood, the monster's demeanor transformed into one of aggression and a heightened desire for violence. However, the monster's bloodthirsty demeanor took a surprising turn as it laid eyes upon Gibong, realizing that he was the one responsible for eliminating its fellow comrades. A notification from the system alerted Gibong that he was facing a boss-level monster, signifying its elevated level of strength and significance within the hierarchy of these creatures. In a moment of critical importance, the system's message reached Gibong with a clear and pressing directive. If he wished to put an end to the rampant dungeon break that was causing chaos and disorder, his immediate and paramount task was to confront and defeat the formidable boss monster. Approaching the monster with unwavering determination, Gibong was devoid of any traces of fear or trepidation. The boss monster found itself in a state of perplexity as it grappled with the unfamiliarity of encountering an individual like Gibong who exhibited no fear whatsoever towards creatures of its kind. A sudden recollection swept over the monster, reminding it of Gibong's role in the demise of its fellow creatures. This realization added a layer of understanding to the situation, transforming its confusion into a potent mix of anger and determination. In an attempt to establish its dominance, the monster employed intimidation tactics, unleashing a display of ferocity and power aimed at overpowering Gibong. Undeterred by the monster's attempts to instill fear through its intimidating display, Gibong displayed an astonishing degree of composure and resolve. Even in the midst of the creature's overt show of ferocity, he remained resolute, his demeanor unwavering and his stance unyielding. Upon catching sight of the creature, Jia Yun's reaction was immediate and visceral. She dropped to her knees, her posture conveying a mix of shock, awe, and perhaps a touch of fear in the face of such an imposing and formidable presence. A shiver of unease coursed down Jia Yun's spine as her gaze fell upon the monstrous entity, its very sight sending a chill through her body. Even though Jia Yun had been trained to be tough in the military, she couldn't prevent the fear that coursed through her body. Seeing the civilians reminded Jia Yun of her duty to remain tough despite her fear. It provided her with a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Recognizing the importance of her role, Jia Yun understood that safeguarding the survivors was crucial in reducing the overall number of victims. Fortunate for Jia Yun, the boss monster was focused on Gibong, allowing her to seize the opportunity and lead the evacuation of the survivors. Jia Yun's urgent shout to the survivors emphasized the need for immediate evacuation, warning them of the danger posed by the approaching monster. Despite Jia Yun's urgent warning, the survivors appeared uncertain and exchanged glances, seemingly lacking a sense of urgency. It was only when the boss monster let out a deafening roar that the survivors' spirits were stirred into action. The imminent threat became clear to them. Overwhelmed by fear and the close proximity to the boss monster, all of the survivors became immobilized, unable to move or react. Regrettably, those who were spotted by the boss monster acted on instinct and fled in a desperate attempt to save themselves. Amidst the fleeing civilians, Gibong stood out as a fearless figure, unburdened by fear and prepared to confront the boss monster head-on. It's heartbreaking that even the child in the crowd had to endure such a traumatic event while everyone was desperate to survive. The child clings to her mother's arms, crying out for help amidst the chaos. Suddenly, the child lost her balance and fell down. The child's mom cried out in worry, showing how scared she was. Quickly, the mom rushed to pick up her child, holding her tight. Unfortunately, bad luck struck the mother and child once again as a menacing monster spotted them. Driven by a ravenous hunger, the monster launched a vicious attack, its sole intent being to devour the mother and child. Clutching her child close, the mother braced for what seemed like an inevitable and terrifying fate. The mother and child were spared from the clutches of the bloodthirsty monster just in the nick of time. With a swift and calculated strike, a courageous figure intervened. The child's innocent mind was deeply scarred by the haunting specter of death and murder that had brushed so close to them. The memories of that terrifying encounter with the bloodthirsty monster had etched themselves into the child's psyche. But as soon as she opened her eyes, she saw the monster being held by its mouth. Gibong, a figure of unwavering courage and strength, emerged as the savior who rescued the mother and child from the clutches of the ferocious monster. Expressing profound gratitude, the mother and child acknowledged Gibong's heroic deed. Nevertheless, aware of the weight of Gibong's sacrifice, they must run away. Gibong took a moment to look back. With a mix of relief and concern, they cast a backward glance, ensuring that the civilians, the mother, and the child were all secure. But then he was saddened since he couldn't see any familiar faces amongst the civilians. Curious and concerned, Gibong inquired of the system about the whereabouts of his mother. Initiating a search, the system combed the area using the information stored in Gibong's memories, all in an effort to locate his mother. He watched as the system's progress bar crawled across the screen, indicating its search for information about his mother. Gibong could feel his heart beating faster as the system concluded its search. To Gibong's disappointment, the system's search yielded no results regarding his family. Despite his hopes and the anticipation that had built up during the wait, there was a stark emptiness in the outcomes presented on the screen. It was disheartening to realize that, at least through this avenue, there was no trace of information about his family's whereabouts or any related details. Gibong attempted to recall the faces of his family members, but the memories were painfully unclear and vivid. The frustration and helplessness he felt were deeply rooted in his inability to conjure up the faces of his family members from his memories. For a staggering span of 3,000 years, Gibong dedicated himself to a relentless endeavor by preserving the memories of his beloved family. Gibong felt a deep sadness welling up within him as he grappled with the fact that even a clear vision of his family's appearance remained beyond his reach. Once more, Gibong shut his eyes in a determined attempt to summon the images of his family members into his mind. Just as he was navigating the corridors of his mind, attempting to resurrect the cherished visages of his loved ones, a seismic shift occurred when the boss monster appeared. The boss monster embodied the spirit of perseverance, as it continued to stand its ground in the face of Gibong's unwavering determination. Despite its formidable presence, it found itself unable to overcome Gibong's resilience. While the deafening roar of the boss monster had no impact on Gibong, its powerful sound proved overwhelming for someone like Jai-yoon, a regular human who couldn't withstand the intensity of the noise. Jai-yoon summoned her inner strength, determined to endure the cacophonous sound, and focused her attention on the boss monster, anticipating its next move. The atmosphere tensed as the boss monster, a formidable embodiment of challenge and opposition, unveiled its next gambit. Within its gaping maw, an array of brilliant lights began to materialize, their radiance cutting through the darkness like beacons of hope. These multiple beaming lights, a stark departure from the ominous roar and impending attack, introduced an unexpected element to the confrontation. The radiant beams seemed to target Gibong with a precision that was both eerie and mesmerizing. Despite the intensity of this spotlight, Gibong remained acutely aware, his composure unshaken, and he stood resolute, refusing to yield to the overwhelming display before him. Suddenly, in a swift and unexpected move, Gibong triggered his unique ability. He referred to it as physical enhancement, a power he had painstakingly cultivated through a rigorous training regimen spanning 3,000 years. This ability, a testament to his relentless dedication and unyielding perseverance, now manifested in a stunning display of agility and swiftness. With a swift and determined motion, Gibong intercepted the oncoming assault of the boss monster using only his bare hands. Amidst the intensity of the confrontation, as Gibong executed each strategic maneuver with finesse and precision, he couldn't help but find his thoughts drifting back to the days when he lived as an ordinary citizen. Amidst the whirlwind of combat and strategy, a poignant memory emerged in Gibong's mind. It was a recollection of a simple yet cherished moment, a conversation with his mother about sharing a family dinner together. As the memory of that heartwarming conversation with his mother flooded his consciousness, Gibong felt an undeniable surge of strength enveloping him. The recollection of her tender words and the warmth of their connection seemed to infuse him with a renewed vigor, as if her presence was there with him in that pivotal moment of confrontation. Fueled by a mix of emotions, longing, anger, and determination, he channeled his energy into battling the boss monster with a ferocity that matched the intensity of his emotions. In the midst of his fervent struggle against the boss monster, a poignant and bittersweet memory surfaced in Gibong's mind. This memory, etched in his mind, marked the last connection he had with her before the abrupt shift to another dimension occurred, altering the course of his existence. Irrespective of the barrage of attacks launched against him, Gibong stood unyielding, capable of enduring each assault without faltering. In a stunning display of resilience and mastery, the onslaught of beaming lights converged in a simultaneous assault. Yet Gibong's response was like he weathered the combined assault as if time itself had slowed down, his movements deftly countering the barrage with an ease. Jai-yoon found herself captivated by Gibong's astonishing ability to deflect each and every attack. Gibong's sheer skill and precision he displayed held Jai-yoon in rapt fascination, as if she were witnessing a masterful dance of combat that transcended the boundaries of the ordinary. She couldn't help herself but to watch Gibong's fight against the monster. Gibong's flawless defense left not a single attack uncountered, leaving Jai-yoon utterly amazed and fervently admiring his prowess. Gibong's unmatched skill and resilience served to further enrage the boss monster, intensifying its anger and determination. In the face of Gibong's remarkable skill, the monster seemed to tap into a wellspring of latent power, channeling its anger into the creation of a luminous torrent of energy that dwarfed its previous assaults. As the monster's preparations reached their zenith, the air grew heavy with anticipation. This time, The monster's preparations were marked by an almost primal determination, a recklessness that underscored its sheer frustration. Amidst this charged atmosphere, Gibong's steadfast stance held firm. His unwavering dedication to defending against the monster's onslaught was now pitted against this intensified threat. The boss monster's escalated assault served as a catalyst, fueling Gibong's resolve to employ his formidable abilities with even greater power and determination. Gibong harnessed his inner strength, summoning forth a wellspring of energy that resonated with a force beyond what he had exhibited thus far. The air itself seemed to crackle with anticipation as Gibong's power surged within him. Gibong channeled his energy into unleashing an ability imbued with the elemental force of water. The water attribute that Gibong wielded held within it a symbolism that resonated deeply with his journey. The sheer magnitude and mastery displayed by Gibong's water-infused ability left the boss monster visibly shaken. Intimidation washed over the boss monster, a realization that its relentless attacks and fury had been met with a strength that mirrored its own ferocity. Gradually, the creature's imposing form began to disintegrate, as if the very fabric of its being was succumbing to the overwhelming power of Gibong. In a final fading ripple, the remnants of the boss monster vanished completely, leaving behind a space that was once again defined by a sense of tranquility and calm. With the dissipation of the boss monster, a palpable sense of relief washed over the civilians who had been caught in the turmoil of the battle. The disappearance of the boss monster was like a balm to the wounded spirit of the crowd. The anxiety that had gripped them was replaced by a renewed sense of safety and tranquility. The clouds that had obscured the sun's rays now dissipated, revealing a canopy of clear blue sky that stretched endlessly above. Amidst this transformation, Gibong stood at the heart of the demolished ground, a figure of resolve and strength amidst the aftermath of the battle. Gibong's presence in the midst of this metamorphosis carried a symbolism that resonated deeply as a testament to the power of resilience and the capacity for positive change even in the face of the most challenging circumstances. As the environment around him basked in the glow of renewal, he chose to inactivate his formidable abilities. Despite his victory over the formidable boss monster, an unfulfilled sense of satisfaction lingered within Gibong. The triumph he had achieved, while remarkable in its own right, seemed to leave an emotional void that transcended the immediate outcome of the battle. The victory over the boss monster couldn't fill the deep longing that Gibong harbored within him. The memories of his family, absent for an agonizing 3,000 years, continued to tug at his heartstrings. The weight of his long journey and the myriad challenges he had faced had led him to a point of introspection. Until there was a woman who rushes through the crowd. Jia Yun noticed the woman who seemed to be familiarized with Gibong. She shivered like goosebumps had run through his body. The woman tried to speak up, until she said Gibong's name. It was a voice that held a familiarity, a resonance that tugged at the edges of his memory and stirred something within him. In that moment, the voice seemed to bridge the gap between the present and the past, creating a sense of connection that defied explanation. Gibong's realization struck like a bolt of lightning. The voice that had been hauntingly familiar, the voice that had reached out to him from the depths of memory, was none other than his mother's. In that profound moment of realization, the emotions that had swirled within Gibong coalesced into a powerful surge. The longing he had carried for 3,000 years, the ache for the family he had been separated from, all crystallized into a single truth. He was hearing his mother's voice once again. It was as if, in that moment, he was not only hearing his mother's voice but feeling her essence enveloping him, embracing him across the chasm of time. Gibong couldn't stop crying. In a moment that felt like the universe itself had conspired to bring them together, Gibong and his mother were finally reunited. The emotions that had been bottled up for 3,000 years surged forth in an outpouring of relief, joy, and love. The barriers of time and space dissolved as they embraced, tears streaming down their faces. Their hug was a tangible embodiment of the years of longing, and the enduring connection that had never wavered despite the unfathomable separation. In that embrace, as the tears mingled and their hearts beat in unison, Gibong and his mother found solace in each other's arms. It was a moment of profound significance that would forever be etched in their hearts and memories. He expressed his remorse for not being able to fulfill the simple promise they had once shared, to eat fried chicken together. All of a sudden, there was a spear appeared out of the blue, the weapon tragically aimed at Gibong's mother. Gibong's heart sank as he watched his mother's life force slip away before his eyes. Yet, even in the midst of this profound happiness, fate had a cruel twist in store. The passing of 3,000 years became a testament to his unwavering dedication. Yang and reborn countless times, Gibong forged a path that defied the boundaries of human capability. And yet, he couldn't save his own mother's life. As he stood frozen in disbelief, his mother's life was extinguished in the most brutal and unforgiving manner. The monstrous being that had torn them apart before had now returned, its sharp tongue acting as a harrowing instrument of destruction. The promises of a brighter future, the dreams of reuniting with his mother, were obliterated in an instant. The mother's body was weakened until she stumbled on the ground. As he knelt beside his mother's lifeless form once more, his grief was an abyss that threatened to consume him. The sight of the boss monster's severed head, still bearing the expression of sadistic satisfaction, was a haunting testament to the depths of its malevolence. It was as if the creature had transcended the boundaries of life and death. The very being that had caused so much pain, had torn apart families and shattered lives, was now reveling in Gibong's torment. In an instant, Jia-yoon confronted the boss monster's head, her resolve unyielding and her movements precise. She shot the monster multiple times, by using her trained and perfect aim every time she pulls the trigger. The outcome was immediate and resolute. The boss monster's head, which had gloated in its sadistic satisfaction just moments before, met its end. As Gibong's eyes met the monster's unholy gaze, a surge of anger mingled with his grief. The mother then brushes her son's cheeks. Gibong's mother mustered the last remnants of her strength to reach out to her grieving son. Her touch was gentle, her voice a faint whisper amidst the chaos. In those final moments, as her life force waned, she sought to offer solace to the son who had endured so much. Gibong's emotions surged into a mixture of rage, grief, and an overwhelming desire to end the creature's reign of terror once and for all. The weight of the events that had unfolded, the loss of his mother, the battles fought, and the emotions that had been stirred, all converged in a torrent of grief that consumed Gibong. With a heart shattered by sorrow, he allowed himself to surrender to the tidal wave of emotions that had been building within him. The next rainy day at the 39th Battalion, Capital Defense Force. Inside the building, in the control center room, Hyungjin and Jia-yoon were found having a conversation about Gibong, who's the center of attention lately. As the attention on Gibong continued to grow, a simmering annoyance took root within Hyungjin. Jia-yoon emphasized that Gibong's efforts had contributed significantly to the safety and well-being of their world, and the attention he received was a natural response to his heroic deeds. Gibong's remarkable actions, while driven by a desire to make a positive impact, inadvertently led to unintended consequences within the military ranks. As he undertook tasks that were traditionally the domain of the military, the officers found themselves faced with a growing pile of complaints and concerns. Hyungjin then pulled a letter from his pocket. He disclosed that the military base had received orders from higher-ranking officials to actively recruit Gibong. Meanwhile, somewhere in the forest, there was a strange havoc happening in the middle of the woods, until the explosions happened all at once from different directions. The scene that unfolded was both vivid and visceral. The aftermath of Gibong's relentless battles was etched into the landscape, painting a picture of destruction and chaos that was hard to ignore. The battlefield became a canvas for his grief, a space where the pain he had held inside for so long was unleashed upon the very beings that had caused it. As the battle raged on, it was as if the monsters bore witness to the weight of Gibong's emotions. Each clash was a testament to the connection between his personal journey and the external conflict. The monsters, once symbols of terror, now became vessels for his pent-up sorrow. Gibong's actions on the battlefield seemed to transcend mere combat, taking on a deeper meaning that resonated with his personal journey. His actions were not just a means of achieving personal closure, but a declaration that even in the face of adversity, the pursuit of justice was a noble and vital endeavor. All the monsters who were seen on site were all defenseless as they all faced Gibong's wrath. With a mixture of emotions coursing through him, he reached out and held the lifeless form as if it were a trophy. In that moment, the monster's corpse became a symbol, a token that embodied the battles he had fought. By provoking the creatures, he sought to draw attention to the consequences of their actions. His intent was to force them to confront the reality of their deeds, to make them acknowledge the lives that had been lost and the anguish that had been caused. Through his provocation, he elevated his grief into a force that demanded accountability, a force that demanded justice and a reckoning for the pain that had been inflicted. In this moment of confrontation, the narrative carried a tension that mirrored the internal struggles Gibong had faced. Gibong, with a resolute calm, stood as an immovable force in the midst of an oncoming tide of millions of monsters. Amidst the tension and anticipation, his choice to wield just one weapon spoke volumes about his confidence and skill. With a singular blade in hand, Gibong's movements were a study in precision, until he finally activated the ability he had. With his ability in awakened mode, Gibong's actions took on a heightened intensity. Each movement carried an aura of power, his strikes infused with a potency that surpassed his previous actions. He had become a force to be reckoned with, a warrior who stood at the intersection of his personal journey and the epic conflict he was now engaged in. In the end, as expected, Gibong won against the millions of monsters. As the day transitioned into evening, the sky painted itself in shades of gray, and a gentle rain began to fall. Gibong, who had exhibited remarkable strength and resolve, was now enveloped in a cloud of depression. The raindrops seemed to mirror his emotions falling softly from the sky, their presence reflecting the weight that he carried within. As he stood lost in his thoughts, a figure approached, a kind-hearted individual who carried an umbrella. Despite the kind gesture that sought to offer solace, Gibong remained ensnared in the grip of his own sadness. The kindness he had received from Jae-yoon was appreciated, yet it also underscored the weight of his internal struggles. In the midst of Gibong's sadness and contemplation, Jae-yoon approached with a gentleness that mirrored the rainy evening's subdued atmosphere. Her words carried a sense of empathy and honesty. She recognized the depth of Gibong's grief, the weight he carried, and the turmoil he faced, yet she also revealed the limitations imposed by circumstances beyond her control. His silence, though wordless, spoke volumes about the intensity of his grief. For Jae-yoon, her empathy for him, coupled with her role as a participant in the events that had unfolded, created a profound conflict within her. In acknowledging Gibong's deep-seated hatred, Jae-yoon displayed a perceptive awareness of his emotional landscape. She voiced the belief that the monsters he fought against were not truly vanquished, as the dungeon break would continuously respawn them. Her words carried a sense of pragmatism, a reminder that the cycle of conflict could persist despite their best efforts. Jae-yoon's words added a layer of nuance to the exploration of heroism and the pursuit of justice. Gibong's misinterpretation of Jae-yoon's words added a layer of internal conflict to the narrative by thinking he was being ordered to do nothing. In a moment of vulnerability, Gibong opened up and shared the weight of his experiences from the past 3,000 years. His words painted a vivid picture of his struggles, his evolution, and the profound impact that the passage of time had etched into his soul. He described the pain of losing his family, the relentless battles against monsters, and the emotional toll it had all taken on him. Through the trials and tribulations of 3,000 years, he held on to the hope of reuniting with his family. The realization that despite his unwavering commitment, the outcome he had fought so hard for might not come to fruition was a gut-wrenching blow. In Gibong's perception, Jae-yoon's words were a call for him to steady his emotions, to gather himself amidst the turmoil he was experiencing. His expression, etched with the raw vulnerability of a soul shattered by loss, pleaded with a silent intensity. This moment in the narrative captured the essence of Gibong's character, the complexity of his emotion, the depth of his suffering, and the unwavering determination to carve meaning out of his experiences. Jae-yoon's silence, born from the realization of the depth of Gibong's pain, spoke volumes. In that moment, Jae-yoon's silence became a reflection of her empathy and her understanding of the complexities that Gibong was navigating. As she processed the depth of Gibong's pain, she recognized the urgency of aiding him in a way that would truly alleviate his suffering, and she felt compelled to take action. With a voice that carried a mix of determination and conviction, in her yell, she communicated her commitment to stand by Gibong's side, to help him achieve the vengeance he so deeply desired. Her eyes spoke of a steadfast commitment to the cause, a pledge to stand side by side with him in their shared mission to eradicate the monsters that had wrought so much pain. This unspoken agreement represented a harmonious meeting of minds, a recognition that their shared objectives could be achieved through collaboration rather than coercion. And 6 months later, the story took place in a hospital. There was a patient, a woman who looks familiar. It turns out, Gibong's mother was still alive but still in a coma for 6 months. The 6-month coma highlighted the passage of time and the enduring nature of Gibong's resilience. It also underscored the patience and dedication required to navigate the challenges of their world. The news introduced a mix of hope and uncertainty, casting a new light on Gibong's journey and the emotions he had been grappling with. Gibong still tried to communicate with his mother. He hoped his mother was proud of him since he's now a civil servant, standing by his mother's side. Gibong's heart swelled with pride as he shared his accomplishments with her for being a high-ranking civil servant officer, even though she lay unconscious. Despite his achievements and newfound responsibilities, Gibong's heart was weighed down by a sense of guilt. The realization that his duties as a high-ranking civil servant officer would limit his ability to visit his mother as frequently as he desired cast a shadow over his accomplishments. As Gibong grappled with the reality of his increasing responsibility, he still hoped that his mother would be okay and not get sick while he was away. He promised that he'll be back soon. In a subtle yet significant transformation, Gibong's posture shifted as he turned away from his mother's bedside. It was as if a switch had been flipped, and he assumed the role of a distinguished individual, carrying the weight of his responsibilities with poise. Stepping outside the hospital, Gibong was met with a chorus of respectful greetings from military officers. The nods, salutes, and deferential gestures conveyed a sense of admiration and recognition, as if he held a position of authority among them. The atmosphere seemed to shift in his presence, and the camaraderie he shared with his colleagues was palpable. The scene illuminated Gibong's elevated status within the military ranks as a testament to his dedication, achievements, and the respect he had earned from his peers. It was a visual representation of the reputation he had cultivated, and it spoke to the impact of his efforts in both his professional and personal pursuits. His attire held an air of sophistication and uniqueness, underscoring his distinctiveness within the military ranks. Gibong's futuristic attire would serve as a symbol of his individuality, a representation of his willingness to break away from the expected and embrace a path marked by innovation, leadership, and the capacity to create change. Gibong's appearance exuded an aura of divinity and otherworldly presence. His demeanor, attire, and the air of authority that surrounded him seemed to elevate him to a level that transcended the ordinary. The following day, Gibong led his team into the untamed wilderness, a landscape teeming with formidable monsters. The collective presence marked a fusion of determination and purpose, prepared to face the challenges. Confronted by a titan of immense stature and a bird-like monster emanating a chilling aura. Its appearance was a disturbing blend of unnatural features and menacing characteristics, evoking a deep sense of repulsion and fear. In a breathtaking display of power, Gibong's very aura proved to be a force of destruction. His aura became a weapon in itself, a growth in the extent of his abilities. Gibong's resilience had brought him to a place of internal steadiness, yet his external capabilities remained a steadfast pillar in his life. Meanwhile, somewhere at the bar, news of the government forging an alliance with a group known as the Shield Guild sent ripples of intrigue throughout the Seoul metropolitan. In the bustling ambience of a local bar, a figure stood out, a man whose demeanor and aura suggested a connection to the authorities. The man seemed to have problems of his own. As the alcohol flowed down his throat, it was evident that he carried a weight on his shoulders. In that single gesture, the clinking of glass against his lips became a metaphor for the clash of responsibilities and personal battles he grappled with. The entrance of this second man added a layer of intrigue to the narrative, sparking questions about the nature of their relationship, the motivations behind the approach. As the two figures converged, the scene crackled with anticipation. The older gentleman unveiled the enigmatic newcomer's name as Cheolbeek, the scouting captain with whom he had hoped to share a drink. The older man's familiarity with Cheolbeek suggested a connection that went beyond the immediate encounter, hinting at shared history or camaraderie. Cheolbeek then took off his hat. With a respectful nod, Cheolbeek acknowledged the older man as sir. The exchange between them hinted at a shared history and a working relationship that extended beyond the current moment. The older gentleman found himself taken aback by Cheolbeek's remarkable ability to deliver honesty in a nonchalant manner. Their conversation eventually reached a pivotal juncture. The older man posed a question to Cheolbeek about a particular individual who had become the focus of attention. A sudden shift in the atmosphere was marked by the breaking news that brought a glimmer of hope to the city's inhabitants. The announcement revealed that the government had effectively managed the recurring threat of dungeon breaks through the utilization of a concealed weapon, the enigmatic Gibong. In the gentleman's perspective, Gibong's prominent role within their organization had inadvertently cast a shadow over their credibility, making them appear ineffectual and lacking in strength. The gentleman's viewpoint indicated that Gibong's actions had not only garnered attention but had also stirred discord among the ranks. A flicker of anger crossed Cheolbeek's countenance, triggered by his boss's mention of Gibong. Cheolbeek's emotional response is to get rid of Gibong. The casual nonchalance with which Cheolbeek expressed his desire to take someone's life sent a shiver down the gentleman's spine. In an effort to navigate the charged atmosphere, the gentleman extended a document toward Cheolbeek. The document held a certain significance, which their organization intends to recruit Gibong to be a part of their guild. The older gentleman went on to disclose a proposition. If Gibong were to align himself with their guild, he would be accorded the status of a captain, a position that held significant authority and respect. His revelation appeared to create a ripple of unease in Cheolbeek. The implications of the plan seemed to resonate deeply with Cheolbeek, stirring a sense of purpose or passion that had been latent until that moment. The impact of the gentleman's news was so profound that Cheolbeek didn't even consider finishing his drink. However, the older man appeared to sense something amiss in Cheolbeek's behavior, leading him to regard Cheolbeek's response with suspicion. The gesture of leaving his drink untouched conveyed a sense of preoccupation, suggesting that his mind was occupied by the implications of the news. Returning to Gibong's perspective, the narrative shifted its focus back to him as he grappled with the challenges presented by a dungeon break in the untamed wilderness. Upon reaching the cliff's summit, Gibong and his team had successfully reached their intended destination. Their arrival at the cliff's summit appeared to initiate a transformative experience, akin to passing through a mystical portal. The visual panorama revealed a diverse array of figures, each clad in their own variations of these cutting-edge garments. This development introduced an element of unity, or collaboration among characters who possessed advanced technology suits, fostering a sense of interconnectedness and interdependence. The system's notification reached Gibong's awareness, conveying the critical information that he had ventured into a 5-star dungeon. This designation carried significant weight, indicating a level of challenge and danger beyond what he might have encountered before. He and his companions were set to engage in intense battles against a multitude of monsters, each possessing enhanced and formidable strengths. Amid the fray, one of Gibong's comrades relayed a crucial piece of information that the ongoing battle they were engaged in marked the final encounter for the current month. Gibong assumed a role of leadership, guiding his team with a clear directive by advising them to remain stationed at their present position. Gibong took to the air with a determined purpose, pursuing the monsters as if his actions were a clear assertion of his role in overseeing the more challenging tasks. This dynamic movement conveyed a sense of authority and responsibility, as if he were making a visual declaration to his team that he was prepared to take charge of the weightier duties. The monsters found themselves caught in a moment of confusion as they observed Gibong displaying a level of courage that defied their expectations. With his willingness to assume the mantle of heavy responsibility evident, Gibong made a decisive move. He requested the assistance of the system to lead him to the location of the boss monster. As the monsters were poised to strike, the system initiated a scan of the surroundings. Simultaneously, Gibong found himself in the throes of battle, engaging the monsters while awaiting the completion of the system's scanning process. While the monsters readied themselves to attack, Gibong took decisive action. His willingness to face the monsters head-on demonstrated his courage and resolve, even in the face of immediate danger. Engaging in combat allowed him to buy time for the system's scanning process to unfold. At a pivotal juncture, the system's voice resonated, announcing an update. It conveyed that the scanning process was nearing completion and would require an additional 5 seconds to finalize. The shift from an ongoing, undetermined scan to a countdown of 5 seconds introduced a sense of urgency. Undeterred by the impending scan and the countdown, Gibong continued to engage in battle with unwavering resolve. Despite the imminent shift in focus, he remained steadfast in his determination to confront the monsters directly. His actions served as a testament to his unwavering dedication and his readiness to protect his team and confront the threat head-on. Gibong's actions in the heat of battle would likely influence the team's approach to the upcoming encounter with the boss monster. Gibong's decision to persist in the battle demonstrated his courage and proactive leadership. At long last, the system completed its scanning process, prompting a decisive update. The announcement informed Gibong that the location of the boss monster had been identified, that it lay approximately 7.8 miles southeast of their present position. Meanwhile, Gibong continued to assert his dominance over the multitude of monsters that surrounded him. His decision to activate his ability was a strategic move, one that reflected his proactive approach to battle. Once more, Gibong harnessed his exceptional ability, recognizing the imminent confrontation with the boss monster. With determination burning in his veins, Gibong surged forward in a swift dash toward the location pinpointed by the system as the boss monster's lair. His every stride carried a sense of purpose, as he readied himself for the impending battle that awaited him. This action showcased his commitment to leading from the front and facing challenges head-on. As he neared the boss monster's location, the stage was set for a high-stakes confrontation. After a determined journey, Gibong reached the designated location and came face to face with the bird-like boss monster. The creature's appearance was nothing short of hideous, its visage reflecting its formidable nature and the challenges that lay ahead, and its name was Albatross. The sight of the boss monster ignited a surge of intense emotion within Gibong, causing his blood to seemingly boil with fervor and determination. As Gibong engaged in his intense battle against the fearsome boss monster, his team stood at a vantage point, their gazes locked on the unfolding spectacle. Each member of the team watched with a mixture of anticipation, concern, and awe, their emotions a reflection of the gravity of the situation. Amidst the tense atmosphere of the battlefield, a sense of curiosity welled up within one of the team members. However, in response to the unspoken question, another team member offered an assurance that cut through the tension. With a tone of confidence and conviction, they calmly stated that Gibong was indeed prevailing in the battle. A sense of intrigue swept through Gibong's team as they observed him in the midst of battle. Amidst the intensity of the battle scene, the vice captain of Gibong's team recognized a sense of responsibility and strategic thinking. The vice captain voiced the belief that their team needed to take action rather than remain passive and potentially become a liability. The vice captain's attention was momentarily diverted by an unexpected development. They observed with a mixture of surprise and curiosity as another dungeon break open behind them. This curiosity suggested a proactive mindset, driven by the need to assess potential threats and opportunities. In a sudden and startling turn of events, a dagger materialized within the confines of the portal. It sends shockwaves through the vice captain's senses. Reacting swiftly to the unexpected threat, they instinctively dodged the incoming dagger with a lightning-quick movement. The vice captain's ability to respond swiftly to the unexpected underscored their leadership quality and their capacity to adapt to rapidly evolving circumstances. The individual behind the vice captain's sudden scratch on his face was revealed to be a long-haired man, radiating an aura of fury and hostility towards Gibong's team. Despite their valiant efforts and skills, the vice captain ultimately succumbed to the mysterious man's prowess. This turn of events underscored the formidable nature of the adversary they were facing. The enigmatic man seemed to shimmer with its blade now marred by the vice captain's blood. Regrettably, the vice captain found themselves incapacitated and in an unconscious state, unable to make any movements. Amidst the ongoing battle and the intricate dynamics of the dungeon environment, a fresh layer of intrigue was added with the arrival of a contingent of individuals to disrupt and undermine the mission undertaken by Gibong and his team. The arrival of their rivals was met with evident displeasure among Gibong's team. A sense of unease and tension permeated their ranks as they contemplated the implications of this unexpected encounter, entertaining the possibility that their newfound adversaries could be on par with Gibong's own strength. The rival group advanced towards Gibong's team, their approach marked by an air of confidence and superiority. As they moved forward, they didn't hesitate to taunt and mock the vice captain who had suffered defeat in a single strike. In the midst of this tense encounter, Cheolbeek made his appearance, emerging as the apparent leader of the rival group. With a discerning gaze, Cheolbeek swiftly deduced that the vice captain's rapid defeat was indicative that he was not Gibong Kim. A surge of protective instinct coursed through one of the team members, driven by the realization that their rivals had set their sights on Gibong and posed a potential threat to him. Cheolbeek adopted an intimidating stance, his demeanor calculated to exude a sense of threat and authority. He patiently awaited the moment when members of Gibong's team might inadvertently reveal Gibong's location to him. As Gibong's team found themselves in a precarious situation, their safety was at risk, even as Gibong himself remained focused on pursuing his own objectives. True to his consistent nature, Gibong never failed to exceed all anticipations whenever he confronted a formidable boss monster in battle. His approach to these encounters consistently transcended the ordinary, marked by a level of dedication and determination that set him apart. He approached these battles with a unique blend of strategy, agility, and raw power. To Gibong's surprise, the boss monster unleashed a formidable surge of fiery energy, demonstrating a previously unforeseen mastery over fire attributes. Despite his self-assured strength, Gibong was taken aback by the sheer power exhibited by his opponent. The unexpected display of might left him momentarily stunned, a testament to the boss monster's exceptional capabilities. Gibong took all the unleashed power of his opponent. Returning to Gibong's team, Cheolbeek experienced a sensation akin to an earthquake, a palpable tremor that resonated through the ground. This seismic disturbance was a direct result of Gibong's intense battle with the boss monster, highlighting the immense energy and impact generated by their clash. Despite Cheolbeek's continued inability to establish communication with Gibong, he found himself faced with a grim decision. Frustrated by the lack of contact and driven by his own motivations, he reluctantly concluded that eliminating Gibong's team was the only course of action left to him. Nestled within the heart of the woods, far removed from the turmoil and chaos that often accompanied the battles of the outside world, lay a peaceful and secluded haven. Here, the bustling sounds of the outside world faded into a gentle symphony. However idyllic the scene appeared on the surface, beneath the facade of calmness, the woods harbored hidden distress. Faint but urgent, voices cried out for assistance, their desperate calls carrying an undercurrent of fear and turmoil. While the scene around him exuded a sense of tranquility, the man was attuned to the unspoken distress that filled the air. His presence on the precipice granted him a unique vantage point, from which he bore witness to the hidden struggles and silent suffering that often went unnoticed by the world. Returning to Gibong's intense battle, he continued to wage a fierce and determined struggle against the formidable boss monster before him. The clash of strength and wills echoed through the air as each blow landed with thunderous impact, sending shockwaves through the battleground. The energy of the battle surged around them, an ever-shifting dance of power and resilience. The once dominant monster now found itself in a state of desperate struggle. However, just when it seemed that the monster's struggle might lead to its downfall, a sudden and unexpected surge of power emanated from within it. The unleashed inferno, fueled by the monster's newfound determination, surged forth in a display that left even Gibong astonished. The intensity of the flames was nothing short of shocking, a brilliant and all-consuming force that radiated with an overwhelming heat. The air crackled with elemental energy as the flames danced and roared, creating a dazzling spectacle that held both beauty and terror in its wake. With unwavering resolve, he positioned himself to absorb the full force of the attack, his body becoming a shield against the scorching flames. Each searing blow struck him with an impact that reverberated through his entire being. Despite the ferocity and intensity of the monster's fiery onslaught, the flames that had been unleashed upon Gibong proved to be shockingly ineffective. As the scorching inferno engulfed him, it encountered an unforeseen resistance that defied its destructive intent. In a surprising twist, the system that accompanied Gibong in his battles revealed a previously undisclosed trait that he possessed, a unique and powerful elemental resistance ranked as the once confident boss monster, which had unleashed its fiery power with a mixture of fury and arrogance, now found itself overcome by a sense of terror. The sight of Gibong emerging unscathed from the flames that had been intended to consume him left the monster shaken to its core. Gibong fixed a piercing and determined gaze upon his opponent, his eyes reflecting a resolute determination that seemed to cut through the tension-filled air. The intensity of his glare conveyed his unwavering resolve and the unspoken promise that he would emerge victorious from this fierce encounter. With an intense surge of determination, Gibong's fist clenched tightly, his fingers curled into a powerful grip. As his fist clenched, he surged forward with remarkable speed, his body propelling him forward in a swift and focused dash. The culmination of his strength and resolve resulted in a blinding burst of energy, forming a radiant beaming light that enveloped the immediate vicinity. The impact of this concentrated force was profound. It inflicted severe damage upon the once confident boss monster. The subsequent effect on the boss monster, marked by its profound injury, underscored the raw power and effectiveness of Gibong's assault. With a single, thunderous punch, Gibong's power reached its pinnacle, resulting in a jaw-dropping outcome. The once imposing boss monster was cleanly cleaved in two. As the dust settled and the echoes of battle subsided, the battle had been won, and Gibong emerged victorious. The declaration of Gibong's victory carried a sense of finality and accomplishment. Following the defeat of the boss monster, a ball-like object that gleamed with an air of significance, this object, resembling a trophy of sorts, held an aura of mystery and importance that captured the attention of all present. Turning his attention to the ever-present system that guided him through his battles, he posed a question about the significance of the flashy ball. The system immediately scanned the ball which Gibong requested, and it was called a Daystone. As always, the system is quite useless since it couldn't provide more details about the ball. Just as Gibong's focus lingered on the flashy ball, a sudden alert from the system jolted his attention. The unexpected attack on their allies by the Shield Guild introduced a new layer of tension and danger to the narrative. Back to Gibong's team, Beak, the enigmatic figure from the Shield Guild, was discovered harassing and intimidating Gibong's comrades. His menacing presence cast a shadow of unease over the situation, as he wielded his authority with an air of dominance. However, despite their collective effort, the formidable presence of Beak proved to be a challenge they couldn't overcome. Each member played their part in trying to contribute positively to the unfolding events, driven by their commitment to the cause and their trust in their leader. Their struggles against Beak highlighted the power dynamics at play and the challenge of facing an opponent of his caliber. It was a disheartening sight to witness Gibong's comrades being subjected to bullying. The contrast between their valiant efforts to contribute and the unjust treatment they faced added a layer of poignancy to the unfolding events. The fact that this was occurring during a mission that required their focus and unity highlighted the additional challenges they were forced to contend with. One of the members still tried his best to stay still. However valiant their efforts, it became painfully evident that Beak's power and training surpassed any attempts to defeat him. His formidable abilities and strategic prowess created an insurmountable barrier for Gibong's comrades, leaving them in a seemingly impossible situation. In Beak's eyes, the members of Gibong's team were mere weaklings. His dismissive attitude toward them and his certainty in their perceived insignificance underscored his arrogance and his belief in his own superiority. He held a firm conviction that none of them could possibly be the renowned and powerful Gibong Kim, until the Shield Guild felt a sudden weightless feeling. News reached the Shield Guild that the dungeon break had been successfully cleared, as the absence of the boss monster's presence was detected. Beak's conclusion marked a significant shift in the narrative, as it solidified his recognition of Gibong's prowess and impact. With a decisive intent, Beak made the determination that his group must depart immediately after dealing with Gibong's comrades. However, this plan changed once Gibong actually appeared on the scene. A subtle sense of satisfaction washed over Beak as he prepared to meet the renowned Gibong. Additionally, he took comfort in the knowledge that his team was poised and prepared to engage in battle with Gibong and his companions. Conversely, Gibong's team experienced a sense of relief upon seeing Gibong's arrival. His presence brought about a feeling of comfort and reassurance among his comrades. The sight of their leader and his demonstrated strength likely bolstered their spirits, offering a renewed sense of determination and hope as they faced the challenges ahead. This moment of respite in the midst of their challenges provided a brief reprieve from the tension. The description of Gibong's team feeling relieved underscored the significant role Gibong played as their leader and source of inspiration. Gibong's reaction upon witnessing his comrades being mistreated and harmed was one of displeasure and frustration. The description of Gibong's emotional response highlighted his commitment to his team's well-being and his role as their leader. Gibong strode purposefully towards the members of the Shield Guild, driven by a determination to impart a lesson. Conversely, Beak initially entertained the notion that Gibong might be contemplating joining their ranks. His initial assumption that Gibong might consider alignment with their group indicated a potential shift in dynamics. However, his perspective shifted abruptly when he detected a palpable aura emanating from Gibong, an aura that was steeped in anger and intensity. The sudden change in atmosphere, as symbolized by the aura of Gibong's wrath. In an unprecedented turn of events, Beak experienced a sensation of fear as he directed his gaze towards Gibong. This marked a notable departure from his previous demeanor and underscored the intensity of the moment. The description of Beak's newfound fear emphasized the significant impact of Gibong's presence. It highlighted the formidable aura that Gibong exuded, one that was powerful enough to elicit a genuine sense of apprehension from Beak. The perception of Gibong as a formidable force transcending human capabilities struck Beak with a sensation akin to encountering a monster. The description of Beak's perception highlighted the impact of Gibong's overpowering presence. Gibong's mere presence left Beak utterly speechless and overwhelmed with a sense of intimidation. The description of Beak's reaction illustrated the profound impact that Gibong's aura. Even in the absence of overt action, Gibong's aura alone was enough to render Beak momentarily at a loss for words. This portrayal accentuated the power dynamics between the two characters and heightened the anticipation for their eventual interaction. The sense of intimidation further added to the growing tension. Beak found himself paralyzed by the realization that victory against Gibong was an unattainable prospect. Gibong raised his voice, stepping forward to directly address those responsible for mistreating his comrades. The portrayal of Beak's paralysis underscored the weight of the impending confrontation and the awareness of the insurmountable challenge he faced. Gibong then asked if the bullies were from the Shield Guild. However, the situation escalated when some of Beak's associates, perhaps spurred by bravado, raised their voices in response to Gibong's approach. Beak yelled at his comrades to not do anything reckless. They all followed Beak's orders immediately. Beak remembered his conversation with his boss, which he finds it was full of crap, because Gibong is way too powerful to be just a captain. Despite the underlying fear he felt, Beak remained resolute in his agenda to recruit Gibong into his ranks. Beak tried to convince Gibong since the two of them are known to be the strongest in South Korea. Even in the face of his own trepidation, Beak remained steadfast in his determination to persuade Gibong to join his group. Gibong's teammates expressed their displeasure at the Shield Guild's intention to recruit their captain. Beak tried to give information regarding Gibong's salary being at 3 billion won, and a compromised authority which Gibong will lead that no government will touch him. The members of Gibong's team exhibited a clear sense of discontent and unease in response to the Shield Guild's overt interest in recruiting their captain. The Shield Guild held a distinguished reputation as an organization that many individuals aspired to be part of, a noble and esteemed group that had captured the imagination of many. Given the prestige attached to the Shield Guild, it was unlikely that anyone presented with such an opportunity would willingly turn it down. Gibong remained speechless and asked Beak one question. Beak thought he finally persuaded Gibong. Gibong then asked if the Shield Guild is responsible for the capital city's defense. He then remembered the time when his mother was almost killed. Beak took pride in sharing with Gibong that their organization held the responsibility for defending numerous locations. Until he got kicked by Gibong with such powerful force, Beak's earlier actions of bullying and mistreating Gibong's comrades had unleashed a chain of events that now came crashing back upon him with a vengeance. The moment of reckoning was swift and decisive. Beak's comrades were furious since Gibong fought back. In a moment charged with determination and resolve, Gibong made his stance unequivocally clear. His priority lay in seeking justice for his comrades who had been mistreated and targeted by the Shield Guild. Gibong's words carried a weight of conviction that left no room for ambiguity. There is an organization called the Shield Guild, the South Korea's strongest guild. The Shield Guild is the protectors of the perilous capital region. Amidst this backdrop, the Shield Guild emerged as the vanguard of safety and stability that has over 5,000 members, including 3S-rank players of South Korea. The Shield Guild's reputation suffered an unexpected blow as Gibong's actions compelled Cheol-beek to confront the consequences of his behavior. The aftermath of Cheol-beek's defeat, his comrades were not willing to let his reputation tarnish further. The once imposing facade of the Shield Guild's invincibility was now undermined by their leader's defeat at Gibong's hands. Gibong's actions served as a stark reminder that reputation is not solely built on strength, but on principles, actions, and the treatment of others. With unwavering determination and a steadfast resolve, Gibong faced off against Cheol-beek's comrades. The clash between the two sides was a culmination of tension, loyalty, and the fervent desire to prove one's strength. As the battle raged on, it became apparent that Gibong's prowess was unmatched, his abilities honed through years of relentless training and dedication. As Cheol-beek regained consciousness, his senses slowly returned to him, and the first sight that met his eyes was a scene of utter domination. His once confident and formidable team, the ones who had accompanied him with bravado and arrogance, were now subdued and overpowered by the very man they had underestimated, Gibong. The sight before him was a stark reminder of the consequences of his actions. His comrades, who had once stood by his side with pride, were now defeated, humbled, and brought to their knees by the sheer strength and determination of Gibong. What added an even deeper layer of insult to the Shield Guild was the fact that as Gibong effortlessly defeated them, his expression remained one of sheer boredom. Meanwhile, at the Bangbi, Seoul, the Shield Guild headquarters. Within the confines of the Shield Guild headquarters, chaos reigned as the aftermath of the confrontation unfolded. The sight of injured comrades, once strong and proud, was a stark reminder of the price they had paid for underestimating their opponent. Amid the aftermath of the clash and the bustling activity of medics and injured members, a figure of authority made a commanding entrance into the Shield Guild headquarters. It was none other than the director, a figure of leadership and responsibility, whose presence demanded attention and respect. The atmosphere seemed to shift as the director walked through the scene, his demeanor a mix of concern and determination. Cheol-beek, the source of the disruption and subsequent injuries, lay still and unconscious. The director's decision to confront Cheol-beek was not driven by anger, but rather a commitment to rectify the damage that had been done. In his role as a leader, the director understood that accountability was paramount. Drawing on his experience and knowledge, the director retrieved a specialized injection from his pocket, a tool designed to rouse Cheol-beek from his slumber. The injection was a calculated choice, chosen to ensure that their confrontation would not be marred by the haze of unconsciousness. As the injection was administered, a slow awakening began to take hold. Cheol-beek's body stirred, his eyes blinking open as the effects of the injection took hold. The director's gaze remained steady, his expression a mixture of seriousness and resolve. The room seemed to hold its breath as Cheol-beek's awareness returned. It was clear that Cheol-beek understood the implications of the situation he found himself in. This was not a confrontation driven by personal vendetta, but rather a commitment to uphold the integrity and purpose of the Shield Guild. Shame and apprehension lingered in his eyes, a stark contrast to the confidence he had displayed before the confrontation. The director's demeanor remained composed, his gaze unwavering as he studied Cheol-beek's expression. His commitment to understanding the situation and addressing it was evident. Cheol-beek's response was tinged with a mixture of resignation and sincerity. Cheol-beek's admission marked a turning point, a moment of vulnerability that underscored the complexity of leadership. The director's expression remained unreadable as he absorbed Cheol-beek's words. His defeat at the hands of Gibong and his team weighed heavily on him, and the prospect of facing the director, the authoritative figure of the Shield Guild, only amplified his unease. Cheol-beek's unexpected admission hung heavy in the air, causing the director's thoughts to churn with a mix of surprise and introspection. Gazing at Cheol-beek, the director's eyes held a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. He then asked Cheol-beek if Gibong is as strong as their guild master. The acknowledgement of Gibong's strength was a pivotal moment that unraveled complexities within the guild's dynamics. Cheol-beek's answer seemed to carry the weight of a pivotal moment. Indeed, the question of superiority between the guildmaster and Gibong's strengths was shrouded in uncertainty, for both individuals possessed an unparalleled level of power that defied conventional comparisons. Cheol-beek was acutely aware of the formidable strength possessed by both parties involved. The acknowledgement of this reality hung in the air, a tacit understanding that transcended words. The director was keenly aware of Gibong's potential to be a valuable asset to the guild. However, Beek's perspective diverged sharply from the director's optimism. He held an unwavering conviction that recruiting Gibong into the guild's fold was an insurmountable challenge. The director's hope clashed against Beek's realism. As the director made his way out of the room where Beek lay, he couldn't help but reflect on the various factors at play. It was imperative that the director navigate this delicate terrain with care and precision. With a sense of determination, he acknowledged that the decision regarding Gibong's involvement in the guild was a critical one that required his personal attention. It was imperative that the director navigate this delicate terrain with care and precision, ensuring that the guild's interests were safeguarded while also considering the potential benefits of a partnership with Gibong. Recognizing the challenge of recruiting Gibong into their ranks, the director chose to take matters into his own hands by reaching out to the vice guild master, a trusted figure within the organization. He underscored the need to neutralize this threat swiftly and discreetly, highlighting the potential repercussions of allowing Gibong to roam freely. The director's words carried weight, and he recognized that his role in this mission was paramount to the guild's continued stability and success. Returning to Gibong's perspective, his team was once again engaged in a mission, this time at the foreboding location known as the Abyssal Shore. This was no ordinary assignment. It was a 4-star dungeon break. The monsters that inhabited this treacherous terrain resembled massive, menacing clams, each harboring danger and potential peril. Yet, the team's confidence in Gibong's unrivaled power were more than a match for these menacing creatures. With each clash, each strike, the monsters were systematically dismantled, their once imposing forms reduced to fragments beneath the might of Gibong's abilities. Gibong's focus shifted from his internal queries to the task at hand as he consulted the system for mission-related information. However, his concentration was abruptly shattered by the intrusion of a new adversary. Emerging from the depths of the surroundings was a colossal creature that resembled a sea monster, its presence sending ripples of unease through the air. His eyes narrowed as he beheld the colossal sea monster with a mixture of determination and unyielding resolve. Gibong moved with a swiftness that defied his burly frame. His fist, a weapon honed through countless trials, blazed through the air, a streak of motion that met the creature's scaled hide with a resounding impact. And then, as if the very fabric of reality had been rent asunder, the sea monster convulsed. Despite his triumphant victory over the monstrous sea creature, Gibong's thoughts remained tethered to a single object, the enigmatic Daystone. The stone had been his trophy, a reward earned through blood, sweat, and sheer determination for vanquishing a boss-level monstrosity that had terrorized the depths. Still, there was no response. But this time, something was different. Gibong's eyes widened in surprise. It was as if the system itself had been awakened to the mystery surrounding the Daystone. Hope mingled with skepticism as he addressed the glowing text. The implications of the system's revelation were staggering. Upon the integration of the Daystone into the system, a revelation unfolded that exceeded Gibong's expectations, which the system could provide 2 results once it was absorbed. Once the Daystone is absorbed, the system will upgrade. And second, it will grant access to the source of the dungeons. Gibong stood on the threshold of transformative change. In the moments that followed, a distinctive transformation unfolded, unveiling the profound impact of this fusion. The dawn of the following day, this man exuded an aura of distinction, the emergence of a figure who immediately seized the attention of all those who crossed his path. Heads turned, conversations hushed, and eyes widened as he passed by, a living embodiment of history's grace and grandeur. His attire resembling that of a noble prince from a bygone era of South Korean history, resplendent in the traditional elegance of a kimono. While he seemed to belong to an earlier time, it was soon apparent that he was associated with the Shield Guild. It became clear that his presence was more than symbolic. He was on a mission to locate a specific individual. Engaging with the bustling city, the enigmatic figure embraced an approach that aligned with his quest. Civilians, startled by his presence, took note of his distinctive appearance and the intensity of his inquiry. Meanwhile, on Gibong's side, a profound transformation was underway. The fusion of the Daystone with the system had reached a climactic point, infusing the surroundings with an ethereal radiance. As the Daystone's energies intermingled with the system's technological capability, a captivating aura enveloped the scene, a manifestation of power and beauty intertwined. Returning to the enigmatic individual, an act reminiscent of a child's innocent creativity, he drew a figure on a piece of paper. As he showcased this drawing to those he encountered, a ripple of bemusement and puzzlement spread among the crowd. His demeanor, which had once exuded an air of regal elegance, now seemed to have taken on an aura of quirkiness and whimsy. Returning to Gibong's side, Another chapter of his journey was unfolding in the wake of the Daystone's integration with the system. This newfound ability unfurled like a blossom, its petals revealing a unique facet of Gibong's potential. Little did he realize that this amplified aura had caught the attention of the enigmatic man with the peculiar approach. Harnessing the unique abilities that had marked him as an enigmatic figure, the man with the childlike drawings set out to unravel the mysteries surrounding Gibong's situation. With a mere gesture, his awareness seemed to transcend the surface, delving into the threads of energy that surrounded Gibong. A triumphant smile graced the enigmatic man's countenance. The culmination of his unique abilities, honed through esoteric practices, had allowed him to accomplish what seemed improbable, to locate Gibong even though they were separated by considerable space. A sense of delight welled within the enigmatic man. The elusive goal of locating Gibong had been achieved. Pause skip po 5 pics ahead case nullet. Among the myriad upgrades that manifested, 2 distinct features stood out: the enigmatic character analysis and the intriguing emotes. These additions bore names that hinted at their nature, yet their purpose remained shrouded in ambiguity, leaving Gibong to ponder the extent of their significance. The system explained that character analysis function allows the system to search up a character's detailed information, especially if the character is a player like Gibong. Amidst the evolving tapestry of power and mystery, Gibong found himself genuinely pleased by the system's newfound functions. The ambiguity surrounding emotes ignited a spark of determination within Gibong. Turns out, emote is just an emoticon like a use for the system to express its expression. Returning to the military headquarters, Gibong's arrival was nothing short of spectacular. Gibong's transformation into his normal self was a testament to the duality that defined his existence. His appearance, while devoid of the luminous energy that had marked his arrival, Gibong headed out. He sought guidance to the nearest stop that would lead him back to the military base. With the guidance of the upgraded system, Gibong's next destination materialized, a bus stop located approximately 0.93 miles from his current location. As Gibong contemplated his mode of transportation, but the upgraded system surprised him by suggesting an alternative, which is flying. This unexpected recommendation highlighted the enhanced empathy of the system since the upgrade, showcasing a deeper understanding of Gibong's needs and circumstances. Gibong clarified his decision, expressing the need to use conventional transportation rather than flying. He attributed this choice to specific orders he had received from Lieutenant Colonel, emphasizing the importance of avoiding detection by the Air Force. Engaging in a genuine conversation with the system, Gibong found himself vexed by a recurring element: its consistent use of emoticons in response. Walking towards the nearest bus stop, Gibong immersed himself in his own thoughts. Yet, amidst the mundane backdrop, an unexpected sensation prickled at the edges of his awareness, an unsettling feeling that he wasn't alone. The enigmatic man earlier, the one with the childlike drawings and the uncanny aura, had reappeared on the periphery of his awareness. As the enigmatic man's presence persisted, Gibong's thoughts sharpened into a conclusion: the possibility that the man might be associated with the Shield Guild. However, a thread of doubt ran through his assessment. The absence of overt hostility from the man conflicted with the usual expectations associated with such encounters. With the system's new ability to analyze character data, he saw an opportunity to shed light on the situation. Amidst the bustling crowd, the enigmatic man's presence stood in stark contrast as he remained motionless. His demeanor, an enigmatic grin gracing his features, conveyed a sense of satisfaction. The system, which had seamlessly analyzed and deciphered so much, suddenly faltered when tasked with the enigmatic man. A sense of disappointment returned. The city's background hum resonated, a familiar companion to his contemplations. Seated at the bus stop, Gibong's thoughts settled, and he allowed himself a moment of respite. Yet, even in this stillness, the unexpected continued to unravel. The system, the enigmatic tool that had both empowered and perplexed him, once again asserted its role as a sentinel. Gibong's senses sharpened, his enigmatic instincts aligning with the system's cautionary notification. At last, the enigmatic dance of destiny reached its zenith, as the strange man and Gibong stood face to face. The strange man's appearance, though seemingly angelic, was marked by an enigmatic undercurrent, a sense of peculiarity and unease that emanated from his aura. Gibong's instincts, honed through his journey, sensed the strange currents that swirled around this encounter. Despite the seemingly sweet and angelic appearance of the strange man before him, Gibong's instincts rang with caution. The cryptic energy that emanated from the man's aura, intertwined with the inscrutable currents of this encounter, sent a clear signal, a reminder that appearances could be elusive and misleading. Gibong chose to disregard the man's presence and boarded the waiting bus. As the bus's engine hummed to life, Gibong's thoughts shifted, carried by the rhythm of his surroundings. Taking a seat, he aimed to distance himself from the stranger and the mysteries that surrounded him. Yet, the unexpected twist continued to unfold. Gibong's gaze widened in surprise as he realized that the man he had sought to evade was now seated right beside him on the bus. For the first time in 3,000 years, a shock coursed through Gibong's being. It was as if he had encountered a worthy opponent, a force that matched his own enigmatic prowess. Meanwhile, in a different location within South Korea, an entity that bore a striking resemblance to a snake. The sinuous form and distinctive features of this entity presented an aura of danger and intrigue. This location boasts a reputation as a 4-star dungeon, recognized under the name of the Giant Snake's Swamp. However, within this context, a valiant figure emerges, a courageous man who appears to possess the demeanor of a warrior. Undaunted by the daunting presence of the serpent monster, this individual approached it with unwavering resolve. Fearlessness defined his demeanor in the face of such a formidable adversary. The creature, previously inhabiting a state of eerie stillness, underwent a transformation in response to the perceived threat. As the man's intentions turned assertive, he launched an attack against the serpent monster. With a single, precise strike of the man's sword, the serpent monster was cleaved in two. The potency and precision of his attack were evident, showcasing his prowess and the determination that propelled him forward. The echoes of the man's victorious act had barely subsided when two additional monstrosities emerged, driven by vengeful intent. Yet, in the face of these new adversaries, the man remained steadfast and undaunted. The malevolent aura exuded by the snake monsters failed to instill fear in him, despite their horrific presence. With resolute determination, the man embarked on a solitary confrontation against the two serpent monsters. Their sinister presence, while menacing to most, failed to evoke fear within him. This clash between the man and the monsters exemplified a resolute stance against overwhelming odds. One of the serpent monsters exhibited caution, seemingly wary of the impending danger. However, in the blink of an eye, the man's audacious action caught the creature off guard. Once formidable adversaries, the creatures now lay defeated, a testament to the man's triumph. Exiting the scene, the man carried the mantle of victory. His strength was undeniable, yet his sense of fashion left much to be desired. Engrossed in his own affairs, he suddenly became aware of another presence, a foreboding energy that exuded an intent to kill. Despite being in the dark about the identity of this threat, he remained resolute, prepared to face whatever challenge lay ahead. Acting swiftly and decisively, the man opted for a bold course of action. He propelled his sword through the air with calculated precision, aiming to compel the elusive presence that had captured his attention to manifest itself. In this crucial instant, the atmosphere grew taut, charged with an expectant energy that seemed to amplify with each passing heartbeat. The resounding clang as the sword met the ground was a resonant challenge, an unspoken call for the enigma to step out of the shadows and reveal its identity. His focus remained unbroken as he scanned the surroundings, heightened senses attuned to any potential response. Eventually, a figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the spotlight of the unfolding scene. Much to the man's astonishment, the mysterious individual who had emerged was none other than the director of the Shield Guild. With a sense of revelation, the director disclosed the identity of the steadfast man before him. He announced that the resolute figure was none other than the Shield Guild's Vice Guild Master, an esteemed title held by Tarim Park, who bore the revered moniker of the Blade Emperor. Tarim's patience wore thin in the face of the director's unsettling aura. The director's attempt at conversation began with a compliment directed at Tarim's strength, yet it was evident that Tarim's tolerance was waning. He sought to bypass the niceties and delve into the heart of the matter, the true reason behind the director's intention to seek him out. The director deduced that the recent turmoil within the Shield Guild might have left Tarim out of touch. In a direct and unambiguous manner, the director presented his request to Tarim to carry out the task of assassinating Gibong. Tarim's response was marked by a heavy silence that settled between them. Without a word, he turned his back on the director, a clear indicator of his dismissal. The notion of assassination held no appeal for him, and he firmly believed that such matters should be left within the purview of the scouting team. Exercising patience despite Tarim's confident demeanor, the director continued in his efforts to communicate. He elaborated on the dire circumstances that had unfolded, the near-fatal predicament the scouting team had found themselves in due to Gibong's actions. The revelation left Tarim taken aback, his initial shock overtaking his earlier arrogance. The scouting team, a highly trained and specialized combat unit within the Shield Guild, was designed specifically to handle situations involving individuals like Gibong. Their expertise revolved around confronting other players, while the responsibility of monster hunting was delegated to individuals such as Tarim. The scouting team, composed of skilled and trained fighters, boasted an unblemished track record of success. The fact that the scouting team had been pushed to the brink by Gibong's actions was a revelation that challenged Taram's understanding of the guild's dynamics. In that moment, Taram's perspective shifted. The director's directive to eliminate Gibong now held a newfound significance for him. The revelation about the scouting team's ordeal had ignited a potent fury within him, directed squarely at Gibong. The following day, Taram found himself standing before a government building, an edifice that exuded an air of heightened security. A sudden disturbance erupted within the Prime Minister's office. Events were about to take a grim turn, resulting in a tragic loss of life. Taram was discovered on the scene, appearing to be implicated in the brutal killings that had taken place. The evidence seemed to point towards him as the potential perpetrator behind this horrifying act. Taram's demeanor shifted unexpectedly to one of delight as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Standing before him was the very person he had sought to meet, none other than the short-haired woman he addressed as Miss Gu. This woman was none other than the Prime Minister of South Korea, Prime Minister Seongryung-gu. Seongryung held the esteemed position of Prime Minister, and she also carried the distinction of being an S-rank player within South Korea. Despite her reputation as one of the most formidable individuals, Seongryung had made a conscious decision to pursue a career in politics, driven by a desire to enact positive change and aid numerous individuals. However, as Taram gazed upon her, his expression radiated a fierce intensity, one that seemed to signal his reluctance to engage in a candid conversation. Seongryung's displeasure was evident, her demeanor reflecting her dissatisfaction with Taram's presence, particularly in light of the fact that he had been responsible for the demise of her bodyguards. Despite this tense atmosphere, Taram's attitude remained somewhat defiant, his cocky demeanor undeterred by the gravity of the situation. 3 years had elapsed since their last interaction, but as Seongryung assessed the allies who stood beside her, her dissatisfaction was palpable. An air of fury began to envelop her, fueled by the sight of her comrades who had fallen under Taram's hand. With a burgeoning resolve, she came to a decision. She would confront Taram in battle, her anger transforming into a formidable force that would drive her actions. Seongryung harbored a desire to vividly illustrate her unyielding nature, her anger simmering beneath the surface. With a tempestuous demeanor, she aimed to evoke within Taram a vivid memory of her own fierceness. As her fury ignited, even her bodyguards were not immune to the intimidating force she exuded. Cowed by her authoritative presence, Seongryung's reputation extended far beyond her role as a political leader. She held the distinction of being a heroic figure within South Korea. Her exceptional capabilities were widely acknowledged. Among the initial players to awaken on the 10th day of the dungeon break, she earned the esteemed status of a first-generation player, a title that marked her as a pioneer of the new era. Beyond her mere presence as a hero, she possessed a power that sent ripples of intimidation through those who knew of it. This formidable ability, aptly named Mass Teleport, represented a 7-star teleportation spell, serving as a testament to her mastery over supernatural forces. The sheer magnitude of Seongryung's power was so dazzling that it attracted the attention of those at the highest reaches of the nearby building. However, despite the display's grandeur, Seongryung maintained an exceptional level of control, ensuring that her allies remained unaffected by its radiance. In the blink of an eye, before her bodyguards could fully grasp what had transpired, Seongryung and Taram had vanished from their midst. The subsequent scene unveiled the aftermath of their enigmatic departure. Seongryung and Taram had materialized at a coastal cliff in Gangneung City on Gangwon Island. The picturesque vista of the coastal expanse stood in stark contrast to the recent turmoil, a serene backdrop to the enigmatic encounter that had unfolded between the two formidable individuals. A tense standoff ensued as the two figures locked eyes. Taram couldn't help but acknowledge Seongryung's unwavering strength and resilience. It was clear she had not wavered in her power. He also found himself duly impressed by her mastery in controlling her abilities to the extent that even the wounded were spared from their effects. However, Seongryung's focus lay elsewhere. Her determination was evident as she conveyed her intent to confront Taram in combat without delay. The weight of her words hung in the air as she proclaimed that he was under arrest for the crime of murder, leaving no room for negotiation. The stage was set for a confrontation that would have far-reaching implications. Later that evening, the focus shifted to Gibong's side of the story. As the journey progressed, the bus eventually reached its destination, the capital city defense force headquarters. Gibong seized the opportunity to find some reprieve and rest, yet the peculiar man persisted in trailing him. Despite his harmless appearance, the man's demeanor exuded an air of foolishness and naivete that grated on Gibong's nerves. Irritation simmered beneath Gibong's surface, but he opted to maintain his focus and ignore the man's presence. Upon his arrival, the military personnel in the vicinity snapped to attention, acknowledging Gibong's presence with salutes of respect. However, the soldiers couldn't help but notice the odd individual who stood behind Gibong, a figure that seemed enthralled by the grandeur of the military headquarters, a stark contrast to his own peculiar demeanor. Recognizing the incongruity of the situation, the military personnel took action to prevent the peculiar man from entering the premises. With the peculiar individual left behind, Gibong experienced a sense of relief. However, his curiosity remained piqued by the strange man's interest in him, raising questions that lingered in the back of his mind. Shaking off the distraction, he continued with his plans for the evening to find a moment of respite and rest. As he settled in, his thoughts turned to the recent upgrade of the system, particularly the instance when it absorbed the Daystone by the shore. While he harbored curiosity about the system's potential to aid him, he was no stranger to occasional disappointments stemming from its responses. The question of whether the system would provide insights into the source of the dungeon loomed in his mind. Considering the possibility, he weighed the idea of seeking out additional Daystones to further empower the system. Suddenly, to Gibong's astonishment, the strange man reappeared right outside his window as he was in the process of getting dressed. The shock of the situation was compounded by the man's ability to cling to the window despite the considerable height. The military personnel swiftly intervened, attempting to chase off the strange individual. Yet, the odd man displayed an almost childlike glee, seemingly enjoying the interaction like a game of tag. His carefree attitude contrasted sharply with the mounting distress that Gibong felt. Amidst the backdrop of the coastal cliff in Gangneung City, a relentless clash of power and skill unfolded between Tarim and Seongryeo. The atmosphere crackled with tension as their opposing energies collided, each move they made echoing with the weight of their intentions. Tarim's movements were marked by an agile grace, his blade slicing through the air with precision and purpose. His combat style bore the unmistakable imprint of years of experience, a dance of controlled aggression that sought to exploit his opponent's weaknesses. His eyes bore the glint of determination, an unyielding fire that fueled his every strike and parry. Tarim's move was not just about a personal rivalry, it was a calculated attempt to secure control over Gibong, who had become a pivotal asset in their realm. The realization dawned on Seongryeo, as the ferocity of the battle carried with it a deeper revelation. Seongryong's fury surged anew, fueled by the understanding that Gibong was indeed a prized possession. The government's alignment with Gibong had marked a significant turning point, eroding the once corrupt partnership with the Shield Guild. With Gibong's involvement, the downfall of the Shield Guild was set in motion. The government's decision to sever ties with the Shield Guild had financial repercussions that rippled through the once dominant organization. As the battle between Tarim and Seongryeo raged on, the stakes grew even higher, reflecting the larger conflict that spanned the realms of power, politics, and personal ambition. Seongryeong's assault found its mark as she unleashed her power against Tarim. The impact of her attack was accompanied by a confession. She revealed her deep-seated hatred for the Shield Guild, an organization she saw as having abused its power, prioritizing monetary gains over the safety and well-being of civilians. The Shield Guild's greed-fueled approach had left a bitter taste, leaving her resentful of their actions. Gibong's presence had served as a profound equalizer, exposing the Shield Guild's hubris and arrogance. As the pieces fell into place, Seongryeo recognized a grim truth. The Shield Guild's failure to recruit Gibong had resulted in a shift of their intentions. Instead of pursuing him as an asset, they had turned to the darker path of eliminating him altogether. Seongryeo possessed a clear understanding that attempting to eliminate a valiant and robust warrior like Gibong would amount to a futile endeavor. She acknowledged the sheer wastefulness of such a pursuit. As the battle raged on, she made it unequivocally clear that no amount of threats or intimidation would sway her resolve to safeguard Gibong. The depth of her conviction was mirrored by her disgust towards the lengths the Shield Guild had gone to in their pursuit of Gibong. Even the harm inflicted upon her innocent bodyguards underscored their ruthlessness. This revelation elicited a sense of revulsion in Seongryeo, reinforcing her stance against the Shield Guild's manipulative tactics. On the flip side, Seongryeo was resolute in her determination to drive home a powerful lesson to Tarim. She recognized the necessity of deploying her considerable power to impart a lasting impression. As her strength surged forth, Tarim's demeanor underwent a transformation. Returning to Gibong's perspective, a resolution emerged in the situation involving the strange man. The enigmatic figure had been apprehended and securely bound. Gibong's curiosity prompted him to approach, but the collective reaction of those present conveyed an air of discomfort and unease in response to the man's presence. Gibong sought clarification on the outcome of the strange man's capture. However, the reality was both bewildering and unexpected. Rather than being subjected to confinement, the peculiar individual had taken it upon himself to sit nonchalantly within their office space. Gibong's team had resorted to binding him to mitigate any potential disruptions he might cause. The joy of encountering Gibong seemed to overshadow any concern for the consequences of his actions. Gibong's patience wore thin, prompting him to cut to the chase and initiate an interrogation of the peculiar man. The question that gnawed at him was simple yet baffling. Why was this enigmatic figure persistently tailing him? The man's response, however, was far from explanatory. He simply conveyed a sense of joy at finally encountering Gibong in person. As the trio, including Gibong himself, contemplated the oddity of the situation, a collective sense of unease prevailed in the room. Their discomfort was palpable, an undercurrent of tension brought on by the man's enigmatic presence. Amid this, one member of the group seemed to stand apart, a girl, unfazed by the strangeness. Undeterred by the man's vague response, Gibong continued his line of questioning, aiming to extract some semblance of personal information from him. However, any hope for straightforward answers was dashed as the man responded with laughter. The underlying mystery deepened, as it became apparent that the man's actions were driven by a fan-like enthusiasm for Gibong. In an unexpected turn of events, the peculiar man offered a new piece of information. He revealed that his initial encounter with Gibong had occurred within the context of the rift. The statement hung in the air, leaving Gibong perplexed and grappling to comprehend the implications of the man's words. The mention of the rift stirred a mixture of confusion and curiosity within Gibong, prompting him to delve deeper into this revelation. The strange man's musings took a turn toward contemplation, as he pondered aloud the extent of Gibong's power, a power that had allowed him to sense and locate Gibong within the rift. This revelation triggered an unsettling sensation within Gibong, a creeping unease that hinted at the idea of encountering a force on par with his own. Gibong's confusion deepened, compounded by the enigmatic figure's apparent knowledge of him. The man's hope for camaraderie and coexistence further baffled Gibong, who found himself grappling with the inexplicable nature of this situation. The strange man's declaration of intent to live alongside Gibong sent ripples of surprise and confusion through the room, accompanied by an unexpected feeling of comfort that defied explanation. Amidst this unusual exchange, the vice captain of the military base intervened, having reached his limit with the strange man's antics. The vice captain's intervention highlighted the clash between the man's carefree approach and the serious environment of the military headquarters. The vice captain's intervention aimed to establish a sense of decorum and respect within the military base. He emphasized the need for the base to be treated as a place of reverence rather than being treated casually like a tourist destination. Despite his seemingly oblivious demeanor, the peculiar man displayed a surprising level of understanding and humility in response to the vice captain's admonition. Acknowledging the gravity of the vice captain's words, he made an unexpected decision to apply and become a soldier within the military ranks. The announcement caught the vice captain off guard, sparking a mixture of emotions within him. However, as the reality of the situation sank in, the vice captain's demeanor transformed. Laughter bubbled forth, a reaction fueled by the sheer absurdity of the man's proclamation. The vice captain's amusement was underscored by a recognition that the man's intentions, though unconventional, held an earnest sincerity that was difficult to dismiss. Gibong and his companions were taken aback by the vice captain's unexpected turn of events. The vice captain's decision, while surprising, came with a caveat. The peculiar man would need to undergo a specialized test before being welcomed into the military team. This stipulation required the strange man to engage in a one-on-one battle with the vice captain himself, a challenge that left the man visibly astonished. Gibong's initial inclination was to intervene, sensing that the vice captain's approach was bordering on excessive. However, the vice captain's stance was motivated by a desire to uphold respect and reverence for Gibong as their captain. Despite the weight of the situation, the peculiar man's impulsive nature prevailed, leading him to voice a theory that swirled in his mind. His words struck a chord that resonated with the gathered military staff. The enigmatic man's speculation revolved around the notion that the many individuals within the military must have at some point defeated the vice captain in combat, inadvertently casting a shadow of doubt over the vice captain's prowess. The air hung with a mixture of discomfort and suppressed amusement as the assembled personnel exchanged awkward glances, keenly aware of the audacity of the man's statement. The vice captain's reaction was palpable. A blend of indignation and frustration at being painted as weak. However, in a testament to his discipline and professionalism, the vice captain chose to rise above the provocation, returning to the intense battle between Tarim and Seongril. Tarim's fury reached its boiling point. His resolve to not appear weak before her opponent was palpable as she unleashed his own offensive. Tarim's calculated move to slash his sword, generating a powerful gust of wind. aimed to throw Seongryung off balance, generating a powerful gust of wind meant to disrupt Seongryung's stance. Seongryung was overcome with unease as she witnessed Taram's descent into madness. A self-assured grin played on Taram's lips, hinting at the presence of additional strategies in his arsenal. As the confrontation escalated, Taram's intentions took a darker turn. Faced with Seongryung's unwavering refusal to surrender Gibong, Taram unveiled a gleaming object. A familiar sight to Seongryung, the recall stone. Responding with agility, she lunged forward in an attempt to thwart Taram's malevolent scheme. Yet, Taram's words carried a mocking edge that cut through the tension. His verbal taunts were aimed squarely at Seongryung's identity as a hero. In a surprising turn of events, Taram obliterated the recall stone, displaying a ruthless determination that left Seongryung unsettled. His threat lingered in the air, a chilling reminder of his willingness to embrace darkness to achieve his aims. With a malevolent gaze, Taram signaled his departure, leaving behind an aura of foreboding. In an almost surreal twist, Taram was suddenly transported to various locations, eluding Seongryung's grasp. The Prime Minister's failure to apprehend him weighed heavily on her, mingling with a sense of shame. The bitter realization that a villain had been set free left her haunted by a somber truth: the challenges ahead were far more intricate and treacherous than she could have anticipated. Seongryung's frustration reached its peak as she grappled with the reality of Taram's relentless pursuit of Gibong. She was acutely aware of Gibong's incredible power, his status as an S-rank player. However, Taram, also an S-rank player armed with a mythical weapon, posed an even more dangerous threat due to his willingness to employ underhanded tactics. The knowledge that her adversary might resort to unscrupulous methods only fueled Seongryung's anger. Meanwhile, back at the military headquarters, the vice captain's excitement was palpable as he prepared to impart a lesson to the peculiar individual who had trespassed. The vice captain's enthusiasm was palpable as he readied himself. The vice captain launched a counterattack, channeling his energy into a powerful punch aimed at the interloper. However, to his surprise, the peculiar man effortlessly deflected the vice captain's punch, all the while wearing a serene smile on his face. The vice captain's astonishment was evident as he observed his punch narrowly miss its mark. Meanwhile, the enigmatic man seemed to believe that he had gained the upper hand, poised to initiate his own attack. With a clenched fist, he prepared to launch a strike against the vice captain. Yet, as the moment approached, an air of terror seemed to envelop the vice captain, an indication that he had encountered an opponent who could rival his captain, Gibong, in power. The vice captain's dawning realization underscored the gravity of the situation. He was facing an adversary against whom his skills were rendered insufficient. Despite his attempts to evade the enigmatic man's advance, it became apparent that the man's speed was unmatched. However, just as the confrontation seemed poised to escalate further, Gibong intervened. His swift action saw him halt the enigmatic man's progress, delicately intercepting him with the tip of his finger to prevent any harm from befalling his comrade. The mysterious individual's surprise was evident, as he came to the realization that his earlier assessment of Gibong's strength had proven to be accurate. Meeting Gibong's gaze, a glint of hope seemed to emerge, suggesting the possibility that the enigmatic stranger might not harbor ill intentions. However, in an unexpected twist, the enigmatic figure swiftly acknowledged Gibong's considerable abilities, prompting him to step back from his confrontation with the vice captain. As a means to initiate conversation, Gibong inquired about the stranger's name. Gibong introduced himself as an etiquette to start a conversation, demonstrating an awkward yet genuine smile. The enigmatic man found himself in a surreal moment. His idol had just requested his name in a manner that left him both humbled and flustered. The enigmatic individual finally introduced himself as Hwi Kang, a genuine smile gracing his features. Meanwhile, the vice captain found himself in an embarrassing situation, particularly as Gibong began to deliver a lecture about the significance of facing a formidable adversary. Gibong's words carried a gentle but instructive tone, urging the vice captain to cultivate the ability to assess opponents accurately. The vice captain's demeanor shifted, marked by a sense of shame and sorrow. He seemed to perceive a hint of disappointment from his captain, Gibong. However, he silently acknowledged the lesson and endeavored to learn from his errors. As Gibong cast a thoughtful glance back at his vice captain, the burden of leadership duties seemed to intertwine with his compassionate understanding. Despite his authoritative role, Gibong retained a sense of empathy for his vice captain's emotions. Conversely, Hwi Kang internalized Gibong's counsel, interpreting it as relevant to himself and evidently taking it to heart. Gibong offered a touch of sarcasm as he humorously reassured Hwi Kang that he didn't consider him a complete fool. With a light tone, He then proposed an intriguing question, whether Hwi Kang harbored a desire to engage in a battle with him instead. Ultimately, Hwi Kang consented to the proposition of engaging in combat with Gibong Kim. As he declared his agreement, Gibong's subordinates couldn't help but feel concerned for Hwi Kang's well-being. The members of Gibong's team, known as the Special Dungeon Control Team, were filled with a sense of unease about the impending battle. They were the sole witnesses to Gibong's previous bout of recklessness. Even the vice captain, who had earlier faced Hwi Kang in battle, harbored doubts about Hwi Kang's decision. While he acknowledged Hwi Kang's potential strength, the vice captain remained convinced that Hwi Kang was not a match for Gibong in terms of power. Hwi Kang readied himself to initiate the fight, his focus intent on the impending clash. In contrast, Gibong appeared to be in a relaxed state, displaying a calm demeanor. However, as the encounter began, Hwi Kang seized the initiative and launched an attack against Gibong. The two adversaries displayed a remarkable ease in their movements, almost as if engaged in a dance of combat. Hwi Kang, determined not to repeat his earlier misstep, concentrated his efforts on executing a well-aimed punch. Yet, his concentration inadvertently led him to lower his guard, a vulnerability that Gibong swiftly exploited. In a swift motion, Gibong delivered a kick to Hwi Kang's face, a retribution for the earlier threat posed to his vice captain. The scene captivated onlookers as they marveled at Gibong's dual identity, a figure of unparalleled might yet also a beacon of kindness. This sentiment resonated particularly with the vice captain, who had previously faced Gibong's admonishment and was now deeply moved by Gibong's protective gesture. Returning to the ongoing battle, Gibong found himself taken aback by Hwi Kang's ability to counter his attack. Although Gibong's kick carried formidable force, it failed to disorient Hwi Kang as he adeptly blocked the blow. Gibong's intrigue seemed to grow as the battle unfolded, his enthusiasm evident in his engagement with a worthy adversary. Swiftly, he launched a punch, only to find Hwi Kang once again successfully blocking the attack. Amidst their physical exchange, Gibong introduced an element of conversation into their duel, expressing curiosity about whether someone had dispatched Hwi Kang to locate him. Hwi Kang's reaction was one of stunned silence, struck by the realization that his idol was keen on learning more about him. Skillfully evading Gibong's subsequent attacks, Hwi Kang playfully teased Gibong by responding with a coy act, suggesting that his motives remained shrouded in secrecy. In an unexpected twist, Hwi Kang capitalized on an opportune moment, utilizing a kick to send Gibong soaring through the air, a surprising feat that underscored Hwi Kang's own capabilities. Once more, Gibong found himself taken aback by Hwi Kang's continual display of prowess. It dawned on him that this was the first instance since emerging from the system's dimension that he had been sent soaring through the air by an opponent. Concurrently, Hwi Kang harbored a wish that Gibong would cease feigning surprise, perhaps desiring Gibong's recognition of his own capabilities. Adding to the unexpected revelations, it was uncovered that Hwi Kang possessed proficiency in magic. This new facet of Hwi Kang's abilities left Gibong mesmerized as he felt the impact of Hwi Kang's magic. Remarkably, despite the potency of the magical attack, Gibong remained unscathed. The encounter ushered Gibong into a state of heightened vigilance, recognizing the need to approach his opponent with caution, given the unanticipated dimensions of Hwi Kang's skills. Stepping closer to Hwi Kang, Gibong directed a query toward him regarding his ability, one that Gibong identified as GI magic. However, Hwi Kang's response was a mere smirking gesture, accompanied by a teasing smile that left the question unanswered, leaving Gibong in a state of playful uncertainty. Without further ado, Hwi Kang unleashed his formidable power, launching an assault that found its mark on Gibong. Undeterred, Hwi Kang continued to channel his magical energy, releasing successive waves of power against Gibong. With unwavering focus, he drew upon the depths of his power, the connection between his inner reservoir and the elemental forces shaping his abilities unyielding. Each subtle motion and intricate gesture he performed was an intricate dance with magic itself, a testament to his command over the arcane forces that coursed through his veins. This captivating display left Gibong's team astounded, as they observed the extent of Hwi Kang's formidable abilities. Amidst the astonishment, the vice captain experienced a jolt of realization that an individual of comparable strength to their esteemed captain existed. Hwi Kang's sense of satisfaction surged as he surveyed the aftermath of his unleashed power. He observed the aftermath of his unleashed power, shrouding the vicinity in a thick shroud of smoke. However, his sense of triumph wavered as the silhouette of Gibong emerged from the haze, standing resolute and unyielding. With a measured tone, Gibong clarified that his survival rested on his recognition of Hwi Kang's magic. This revelation left Hwi Kang in awe of Gibong's strength, marveling at his ability to deflect the formidable magic directed at him. Hwi Kang found himself astounded by the unexpected outcome, as he hadn't anticipated Gibong emerging from the magical onslaught unscathed. Gibong's defense was that his attire had been shredded by the magical force, leaving him relatively unharmed. This state of affairs seemed to invigorate Gibong even further, as he balled his fist with renewed determination, clearly gearing up for another round. However, Hwi Kang made an abrupt decision to concede, signaling the end of their intense duel. As the battle concluded, Hwi Kang couldn't restrain his awe and admiration for Gibong's prowess, leading to an unending stream of praises and accolades. Gibong's team, on the other hand, regarded Hwi Kang with a mix of amusement and incredulity at his antics. Despite their exasperation, Hwi Kang didn't hold back from reminding everyone that he had previously bested the vice captain in an attempt to reinforce his qualifications for recruitment. With a jovial expression, he expressed his desire to form a bond of friendship with Gibong. Gibong, however, wasn't quite ready to let the matter rest. Seizing an opportunity, he swung his fist towards Hwi Kang's face, a gesture that seemed to be fueled more by annoyance than actual aggression. The single punch was enough to send Hwi Kang hurtling through the air, his form of stumbling and unsteady as he landed on the ground, momentarily defenseless. Without dwelling further on the spectacle, Gibong turned away and began making his way out. However, before his departure, he issued a directive to his team. He reminded them to extend a helping hand to Hwi Kang, assisting him in settling into his new living arrangements within the military headquarters. It was a pragmatic gesture, a nod to the reality that Hwi Kang would now be a part of their team, whether he liked it or not. Gibong's team found themselves in a state of collective distress and trepidation, fully aware that their newfound recruit, Hwi Kang, was bound to be a source of trouble and exasperation. Amidst the chaos of their thoughts and apprehensions, their attention was inadvertently drawn to the prone figure of Hwi Kang, sprawled awkwardly on the ground. The narrative transitions to the Inchin Field dungeon, specifically the Fire Dragon's Nest, which holds the remarkable distinction of being an 8-star dungeon, the highest rank currently attainable. The news of this particular dungeon's rank sent shockwaves through the online community, and a resounding consensus emerged. The awakening of the fearsome dragon within the dungeon would inevitably lead the Republic of Korea into its most dire crisis yet. Simultaneously, Taram's plans were unraveling at an alarming rate. His calculated maneuvers had backfired drastically after his confrontation with Seongril, leaving him seething with frustration and desperation. In his recklessness, he found himself within the perilous confines of the dragon's nest, as if taunting fate itself by provoking a situation that could potentially plunge South Korea into unprecedented chaos. Amidst the eerie quietude of the dragon's nest, the slumbering dragon remained undisturbed, lost in its deep repose. However, the tranquility was suddenly shattered by a thunderous explosion that reverberated through the chamber, jolting the creature from its slumber. With a menacing and awe-inspiring presence, the dragon awoke, casting a chilling shadow over all of humanity. Its very existence posed an imminent threat, capable of obliterating all in its path. As the dragon roused itself from its deep sleep, its intentions were crystal clear, and that is to wreak havoc upon the unsuspecting civilians. Its roar echoed with an ominous resonance, a haunting signal that signaled impending danger to anyone within earshot. The stage was set for a catastrophic confrontation between humanity and the ancient terror that had awoken from its age-old slumber.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Leave a comment for the next part, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.